Hey guys, this is God Harry. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see second part, what if Snape raised Harry and unleashed his true power. Here is short summary. When Dumbledore assigns Snape as Harry's guardian, neither is prepared for the bond that will form. As Snape trains Harry, unlocking his hidden potential, Harry grows stronger than ever, ready to face his destiny. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. Severus, may we have a word? Snape was walking out of his office when the tiny professor found him. Certainly, Phileas, I have 10 minutes now before my next class, or do you want to join me for tea this evening? Tea would be fine, thank you, Severus. See you later. Snape watched as the tiny man walked the corridors toward the Ravenclaw Tower. He did not wonder what they were going to discuss. Lately all that was in the staff's mind, and his too, was Harry's adoption. Severus wished for this to end soon. It was too much uncertainty. After owling the papers to Child Services, he had received an acknowledgement of receipt, but since then there had been no news. 3 weeks had passed. Albus said that he had been contacted, and that everything was running smoothly, yet Severus had a bad feeling and was waiting for the axe to fall. He wanted to hurry with the blood adoption. Once that was completed, the ministry would just have to ratify it with the paperwork. But in the meanwhile the future was uncertain. He hoped that Phileas had found the right ritual at last. Harry seemed to be getting used to the idea. He was more talkative than usual. He was struggling in class but doing better. They were meeting twice a week, to review his progress in school and on Saturdays for breakfast, after which Harry would stay the day in Severus' quarters and go back to the tower to sleep. The room was almost ready. Severus had placed warming charms and changed the color of the walls and had fixed the furniture. Harry had unpacked the sheets and blankets, and the books and toys, but had not asked to sleep there, and Severus did not want to insist until the adoption was complete, or at least the blood adoption. Phileas Flitwick arrived at tea time. After each man had a cup of tea in their hands, he started talking. Well, Severus, Flitwick cleared his throat, I have completed my research. I think we have to do it as simple as possible. I wanted to discuss it with you first, because with our female colleagues it can be a little bit complicated. Complicated was not the word that Severus would choose, but he did not dwell on that. What does it involve? He asked, fearing the worst. We should divide the process in 3 parts, Severus. Preparation, celebration, and the blood adoption itself, but each part is very important, you see. The completion of one would boost the others. Rituals provide a way for people to express their feelings and recognize change. They signify change that will take place, in your home and in your life. Change. A small scary word. Severus sighed. What should we do? The first part involves only you. Severus was paying all his attention. He placed his cup on the table in front of him. Flitwick continued. This is what we are going to call the pre-adoption ritual. It involves you preparing to receive the child. It means that you are going to get a place ready for Harry. The room is almost ready. Severus pointed to the door down the hall. Good. Then we can go ahead. You must be convinced that this room is going to belong to your son, not the son of your best friend or the son of James Potter, not even the son of the love of your life. Severus flinched. Yes, Severus the First, no. But the room must be for Harry. Your son. Nothing more or less. But I do not want him to cut the ties that bond him with his parents. Remember that we will try to keep the blood wards for his protection. The child does not have to break those bonds to bond with you. But you will have to make new ones. You have to realize that he is yours. You are the one that must realize that for him to be really yours. Remember that we will be dealing with ancient magic, that is raw magic that works with the intent. There couldn't be even a trace of doubt in your mind. As any charm involved. Not a charm, it is more like an exercise of will. You will need to use some candles, to be more precise. You are going to fix the room for Harry. After each detail is ready, you are going to light a candle and say, "This is the bed of my child," or, "This is the wardrobe of my child," and also, "This is the place for the dreams of my child." Then at your table, You will say that there would be always a place for your child to sit and in your arms a place for comfort. There is not a set line to use, you should make it up as you go. Say what your heart feels at the moment. In the end you will light the last candle and will say, I am ready for the child to come and be mine. You will do that for 3 consecutive nights. If you start tonight you will finish on Thursday. I can do that, I will start tonight. Flitwick looked into his robes and took a box, the size of a book. He opened it and presented it to Severus. Here are the candles. What's next? Until now it was not so hard, thought Severus. Celebration. Severus did not like how that sounded. Flitwick saw his expression and continued. That is why I wanted to talk to you alone, my friend. You know how just that word would make Minerva's, Pomona's, Poppy's and Albus' eyes twinkle. Rituals provide a meaningful bridge out of secrecy and shame. You must let the world know. On Friday or Saturday you should have a celebration that would inform your friends that you are ready for the child to arrive. Phileas saw that Severus was still reluctant. Rituals celebrated with openness, love and pride send a strong message of validation to those around us and, most importantly, to the child. 2 things popped into Severus' mind. One was, is Harry going to be present? And, I am not good at preparing parties. Phileas could almost hear him. You can let Minerva or Pomona do it. Severus got a genuine look of terror. But it might just be easier if you tell the elves how many are coming. They will get the food and drinks, you won't need anything else. I do not have friends, Phileas. Rubbish, Severus, we are not only colleagues, you know we all support you in this. Do I need to inform all the school, then? I understand that you want to keep it private. The staff will know anyway but not the general public. It is important that Harry understands that you want to keep it a secret because of his safety. Not because you are not happy or proud of being his father. He will not be present in that reunion but he should know about it. Could we make the child shower reunion in the staff room? Severus did not really want people in his quarters. Possible, but I would recommend it to be here, as everyone will be required to bring a welcome present, and it is better if they are allowed to place them in Harry's room. This rooms will be full of good wishes. What kind of presents? Candles, presents, parties. Would they also need him to bake a cake? Symbolic. Appropriate for an 11-year-old. Maybe something sweet, something warm, clothes or toys. What next? Full moon is on Tuesday. That would certainly make the ritual stronger. You must choose 4 witnesses. I think that Pomona, Poppy, Minerva and Albus would be glad to do it. I will conduct the ceremony. We would require the same 4 candles and picture of Harry's parents. Harry and you must be present. That is when we are going to need blood. Harry, light this candle for your parents and tell them, first in your mind, that you are not going to stop loving them or being their son but are going to become Severus' son. Harry lit the candle and placed it in front of the picture of his parents. He kneeled on the pillow in front of the table. His back was touching Severus' knees. Now, say the line that you practiced. Flitwick was seated on side and was directing the ceremony. Mum, Dad, I will always be your son and love you, but now I am also going to be the son of Severus Snape. The candle flame brightened and then it went out. All those present felt a small breeze around them. Now Severus, light the candle again and tell them that you are claiming the child as yours. That you are entitled to him, regardless of anything past or future, that he is your child and you will love him. Severus felt that his hand was trembling as he lighted the match. But at the moment the fire touched the candle he felt a warmth around him. A warmth that he had associated with his mother, and later, with Lily. He knew that it meant that Harry was now part of himself. He said the words, and listened to them as if someone else was talking. The candle stood lit. Phileas looked at that with approval. The ceremony was going very well. Now my friends, you who are the witnesses, are going to light 2 more candles and I will light one also. Because the fire that they represent will bind us to remember and will bind us to fulfill this ritual. We are witnessing this beginning and we are bringing our collective magic to keep the bond. Severus, please use the pin and place a drop of blood from your finger on the cloth. Now help Harry do the same. Now touch your fingers and let the blood mix. Harry felt a tingle that started in his finger and went through all his body. He was looking at Severus and knew that the man had felt the same. Flitwick continued. Fold the cloth. Now your blood is mixed. Place the folded cloth over the candle. The cloth burned in an instant, like a snowflake in a fiery grip. Another warm breeze surrounded them and the candles went out at the same time. Everyone was silent. Severus had both his hands holding Harry's shoulders. Well, it seems that it worked. Harry, you have a father. Severus, you have a son. You are a family now. Harry stood up and felt the arms of his father around him. They sat in the same chair. Everybody present shook hands with them. Harry saw that the pinprick in his index finger had closed. He felt like crying but did not want to do it in front of his professors. They left some minutes later, understanding that the small family needed time to be together. This was a celebration for two. Harry stood by Severus as he said goodbye to their guests. Both were relieved when the door closed after the last one. Was that all? The boy asked. He felt full of emotions and he did not know how to express them at all. Yes, Harry. Now you may open your presents. Presents. Yes, they brought them the day of the party. They are welcome wishes. Presents for me. Harry was still overwhelmed by the ceremony. Severus tried to lighten it up. Well, they are for my son. Do you happen to know him? I am your son. Then I think that they are for you, son. Harry ran and embraced his father. Severus asked to be the referee on the next Quidditch game. After what happened during the first game, he did not want to risk Harry but couldn't stop him from playing. He wanted to be close if an emergency occurred. Harry was so excited to have his father near him that he caught the snitch as soon as the game started, making it one of the shortest games in Hogwarts history. As Gryffindor won, they celebrated in the tower. The following Monday, Severus received summons to appear at the Ministry of Magic that same afternoon. He informed the headmaster and they decided that he should not go alone. Albus Dumbledore and Phileas Flitwick would go with him. They apparated out of the school boundaries to the main lobby in the Ministry of Magic. From there they took the elevators to the Child Services Department. They were made to wait in a small meeting room. An old witch from Child Services offered them coffee and tea and left, then returned accompanied by Cornelius Fudge 10 minutes later. The man looked at them angrily. Dumbledore, I was informed that an illegal adoption ritual was performed in Hogwarts last Tuesday. It was not illegal, Cornelius. Adoption rituals are not forbidden. Adoptions must be sanctioned by the ministry. We understand that the paperwork is in process, Cornelius. He turned to look at the witch beside him. It is in process, but approval had not been granted, stuttered the minister. As of today, Cornelius, 5 weeks had passed since the Children's Services Department received the paperwork. The policy says that the proceedings have to be completed in 1 month. So the paperwork should be finished by now. We have not finished it. There are things we are still considering. He could hardly talk. What things are you talking about? Albus Dumbledore was at ease. Like the fact that the child to be adopted is Harry Potter. And the person that is going to adopt him is a Death Eater. You know that the charges were withdrawn. Severus Snape was declared a free man more than 10 years ago and as such he may adopt any child. Any child, but not Harry Potter. Why not? Because the child needs special attention and he has no right to do it. Cornelius, we delivered along with the required papers the letters from the child's mother stating that she was a friend of Severus and that she wanted him to take care of her son. The child has relatives. He does, but his relatives, his uncle has been offered a position outside the country. They did not want to separate Harry from the world of his parents and they requested that a guardian was appointed for the child. A guardian, but not a parent, this is too definitive. Severus Snape has been Harry's guardian since the beginning of the school year, so the next logical step was to ask for the adoption. But he had not been approved by the ministry. He was approved by the ministry before he started teaching at Hogwarts. If you allow me, Albus. Of course, Phileas. Minister, when you learned of the adoption ritual, it was completed, was it not? Yes. It means then that it was successful and that you need only to ratify it by giving the correct papers to Mr. Snape. We are not going to do that. Do you really want to mess with ancient magic? Said Flitwick. That moment the lights went out in the small room and a strong wind blew around them. All present were left speechless. Dumbledore lighted his wand and said, Do you plan to go against ancient magic, Cornelius? Are you prepared to do it? This magic is as strong as an unbreakable vow. In the light of Dumbledore's wand, Cornelius Fudge felt really small, and he had never been good with ancient magic. Of course not, Albus. We know of the strength of those vows, and that is why those rituals should be regulated by the ministry, if they are done wrong. In this ritual there is only hope and love involved, Cornelius, the beginning of a family. So, said Severus in the voice he used to make all of his students tremble. Are you going to give me the papers? Certainly, but we are going to file a protest. The light went off again after a loud thunder-like noise was heard. The light returned after a small flicker. We are going to give you the adoptions papers, the pale witch said. Cornelius Fudge, too scared to talk, only assented and signed the parchment that was presented before him. He said his goodbyes and went out. The Minister of Magic ran all the way to his office and asks his secretary to suspend his meetings for the afternoon and to get him a calming draft. The three wizards went for a drink in the Leaky Cauldron after the meeting. They sat in a private booth and ordered their drinks. Severus looked a little shaken. He had the folded parchments in the inner pocket of his robes and touching them against his chest. He had heard of the strength of ancient magic, and that was the reason he wanted it to protect Harry, but he had never heard of it manifesting itself like that. Phileas sat in a tall chair. As he sat, he took some marble-sized balls from his back pocket. Some were black and some were silver-colored. He placed them in front of the headmaster. The ingenuity of the young minds always surprises me. Who could have believed it? Severus looked at the balls, but he did not know what they were. You will have to give points to Gryffindor, my friend. I will give 10 points each for each ball I used, and also a free pass for the next detention they earn in my class. They should learn to use their brains in more constructive ways. Although, if I may say it, these things are brilliant. I wish I had a picture of Fudge's face after the thunder. The small man almost fell from the chair laughing. Whom are you talking about? Severus wanted to understand the conversation. The Weasley twins. They managed to create these extraordinary balls. Those balls. Yes, Severus, the black ones extinguish the lights and the silver ones produce a sound very much like thunder. The small man was making a big effort not to fall of the chair. I thought they would be helpful. I thought you had overdone it after the second one thundered, Phileas. Laughed Dumbledore. My mistake, I used 2 balls. I bet Fudge will think it twice before he tries to go against an ancient ritual again. At that moment the drinks arrived and Severus toasted his friends, and vowed to go easy on the twins in the future. That night Severus called Harry to his quarters and showed him the parchment. He knew that it changed nothing between them now, but they framed a copy and placed it in Harry's room. They were a family with ministerial approval after all. Hello Severus, what are you doing here, on a Tuesday? Severus was not surprised that his colleagues had noticed. Minerva was very observant. Since the adoption, he had tried to spend some weeknights with Harry. They were still learning about each other and needed time together. So usually on Tuesdays Harry would do his homework in the dungeons and have dinner with Snape. After dinner they would play board games or read, and Harry would sleep in his bed. He would also do that on Saturdays. Severus did not visit the teacher's lounge those days. Harry said that he was completing a project with his classmates. Minerva poured him a cup of coffee with a little bit of fire whiskey and sat beside him. A project? Did he said for what class? Not really. I know that it is not for potions, and judging from your reaction neither for transfiguration. They are up to something. Yesterday Potter, Granger and Weasley almost missed curfew. Did they? Yes. I was in the tower and they entered with barely a minute to spare. I asked them what were they doing, as yesterday the library closed earlier and they did not explain. They said something about sending an owl to the Weasleys. You will let me know if he is not on time, won't you? Of course. Severus saw Harry the next day at breakfast, talking animatedly with his friends, and did not think more about it. On Wednesdays Gryffindor first years had astronomy, so they were allowed to stay later in bed on Thursdays, and he did not see Harry at the Great Hall for breakfast. But he was intrigued when at lunchtime he couldn't find the black-haired child seated beside the bushy-haired girl at the Gryffindor table. Have you seen my offspring today? He asked Minerva McGonagall that was seated beside him. No, I had a very busy morning. I do know that Ronald Weasley spent the night at the infirmary. Harry may be visiting him. Without Granger. What happened to him? I do not know. I have to see Poppy later. They had astronomy last night. He might have caught a cold. I have first-year Gryffindors for Transfiguration in 2 hours. I will ask Mr. Potter of his whereabouts. Please tell him to report to me if you find that Weasley has something contagious. Minerva smiled. Severus was showing his protective side more each day. She was also intrigued. Granger was eating, but she looked preoccupied and a bit out of sorts. Maybe she was missing her friends. Minerva knew where her lions were having history of magic. The classroom was in the same corridor she had to walk to arrive at her classroom, so she decided to escort them to her class. It was not strange for some pupils to fall asleep in class, and Binns hardly noticed. She was worried when she realized that Potter had not attended that class. Hermione left the room alone. Was he in the infirmary also? Once in her classroom, McGonagall was about to send a message to Severus when the child knocked and hurried inside. The boy looked ashamed and a little disheveled, as if he had run from a very far location. Minerva breathed relieved. The child looked healthy. He asked her for permission to enter and then sat beside his friend. She liked the child a lot, but it was not in her nature to excuse class ditching or lateness. She explained the day's lesson and gave work to her class. Then she wrote a note for the potions professor. Mr. Potter, she called at the end of the class. Harry walked slowly toward her desk. I am sorry I was late, Professor. It is not only that you were late for my class, Mr. Potter, you were not present in the class before this one. Do you have any excuse to skip a class? The young man was looking at his shoes. No, ma'am. I didn't think so. Your classes for today are finished. Please take this note to Professor Snape and ask him to talk to me this evening. Yes, ma'am. Harry took the folded note and placed it in his robe's pocket. Hermione was waiting for him at the door. She looked as tired as he felt. He would have to give the note to his father and wondered if it was a good moment to ask for his help. 2 weeks and a half before, just after Easter, Harry had received an invitation for tea from Hagrid. He had asked Severus if he was allowed to go and was told that Hagrid's hut was not out of bounds. That he knew that the gentle big man was Harry's friend and that as long as he had his assignments under control, Harry could visit Hagrid as often as he wanted. Harry was surprised by that, but tea with Hagrid was more surprising. He showed Hermione, Ron and Harry a dragon's egg that he had won in a game of cards. Hagrid was placing the egg in the fireplace to keep it warm and to get himself a little adorable dragon. It was good, from Harry's point of view, that Severus had allowed him to visit Hagrid without having to ask, because 3 days later the egg hatched and Hagrid asked for their help to take care of the little dragon. Norbert grew very fast. 1 week later he was too big to sleep in a crate and was beginning to blow fire. Hermione, Harry and Ron talked to Hagrid about how dangerous it was to have a dragon. And not only because it was illegal, the dragon was going to end with Hagrid's house and the rest of his pets. He couldn't be allowed to stay at the school. Hagrid had to pass a night putting out fires before he realized that his young friends were right. But he needed to find a loving home for his little dragon. Ron wrote to his brother in Romania. He asked for help in finding a good home for Norbert. The next week Ron received a letter from his brother, who fortunately knew Hagrid and did not ask too many questions, and told Ron that he had arranged a pickup for the small beast. Ron, Hermione and Harry sent the reply to Charlie's letter on Monday, and they almost missed curfew. Their head of house was at the common room that night. Harry, Hermione and Ron slept better that night knowing that the little dragon was going to go away soon. Hagrid was really sad. He spent the night singing lullabies to Norbert and putting fires out with several buckets of water. On Wednesday before astronomy class, Ron was bitten by the creature. His hand was double its normal size at the end of the class and he had to go to the infirmary. Hagrid asked Harry to Dagon sit for Norbert the next morning as he had to see to something about the unicorns or other creatures in the forest and the baby dragon couldn't be left alone. Harry went after charms. He had a free period until lunch, then he had history of magic and transfiguration. Hagrid said that he would return at lunchtime. But he had to tend to a sick Thestral and returned to his hut an hour later. Harry ran to the school but was late for transfiguration. He still had to learn how Ron was faring. The note in his pocket felt very heavy as lead, and his shoes were not lighter. Harry was on his way to the dungeons. Wishing they were farther. He knew that his father had also ended the classes for the day and dreaded the encounter. Harry had very bad experiences with notes sent home from school. It was always the same story. It would start with his cousin laughing at him and taunting him because he had gotten in trouble at school. Then his aunt would read the note and would give him extra work to think about the naughtiness of his acts in particular and his life in general. The worst was when Uncle Vernon arrived. He would scream until he was red in the face. At the end of the story, Harry would have a very tender and red backside, after being the recipient of a very thorough whipping for embarrassing his relatives. And he would most certainly be sent to bed without dinner. Harry sighed. He knew that his new father would not hurt him, but he was afraid that Snape would regret having him as a son. He knocked at the door of the dungeons. He could open the door, but this time he was not sure of the welcome. "Ah, Mr. Potter," said Severus as he opened the door. Minerva had contacted him by Flo, so he knew that Harry was coming. He sat back in front of his desk. "Come here and stand beside me." Severus' voice was soft and gentle. Harry stood beside him, his face pale. He was almost in tears. Reluctantly, Harry handed him the note. Severus took the note and opened it. He read the scribbled message and turned to look at the contrite boy. "Do you know what this note says, Harry?" Harry nodded. "A verbal answer, if you please, son." Harry whispered. "Yes," afraid to look at him and even more afraid to look away. "Tell me." Snape's voice kept being soft. "It says that I skipped history of magic and that I was late for transfiguration." "And you skipped lunch also, didn't you?" Harry had gained weight and was now at his age weight, but Severus insisted that he should eat every meal. "Yes, sir." "Do you have a good reason for all these things?" "Yes." Harry breathed deeply. He remembered the conversation he had with Snape after the explosives were defused before New Year. Severus had said that he should ask for help. He looked at his father in the eye and said, "I need help with something and I need you not to ask too many questions." Severus knew when he had made that promise that it would come back to haunt him. What was this child's problem? "Explain what is the problem and I will help you, son." Harry took one step closer. "Where were you this morning?" "At Hagrid's." "I ate something there. He is the one that needs help." "Was Hagrid with you?" "No, sir. He arrived later than he planned. That is why I was not able to come to History of Magic and was late for Transfiguration. He was supposed to arrive at lunchtime, but..." Snape placed his hand softly over Harry's mouth, stopping the tirade. "Start at the beginning, son. Why were you asked to be at Hagrid's cabin this morning? What is the problem, son?" Harry lost the control at that moment. It was a sobbing little boy that explained the presence of a dragon within Hogwarts grounds. And the injury to Ron Weasley. Severus felt his pressure raise. Why was nothing simple with this child? "And how is Mr. Weasley?" "I don't know." Harry took a tissue and cleaned his eyes. "He went to the infirmary last night because his hand was so swollen and it hurt him a lot. We have not been able to visit him. I was watching Norbert this morning and..." "How close have you been to that dragon?" "I just fed him." Severus held his arm, turned him around and placed a sound smack to his beeps. "Ouch. Why didn't you tell me since the dragon hatched? It was not dangerous then." Harry turned to take the target away from Severus' hand. It was small and Hagrid said that he could handle it. "I didn't know that it would grow so much in such a short time." Severus couldn't stand to be seated anymore. He stood and started pacing in front of Harry. "You said that you already contacted Charlie Weasley and set a time for it to be picked up." "Yes, sir." Harry was trying to keep his backside as far as possible from his father. "When are Charlie Weasley's friends coming to get it?" "Saturday midnight, on the highest tower," said Harry. Snape stood still. "And when did you plan to tell me?" "After the dragon had bitten you or Miss Granger too." He planted a couple more of smacks on the boy's beeps. "No, Dad, I was going to tell you tonight. It is really hard to handle, I'm sorry." Harry's hands were on his back. "It was a problem since your friend was bitten. I know. But it happened late yesterday, and today I had to go to Hagrid and..." Snape kneeled in front of him and took hold of his shoulders. Harry could see the worry in his dark eyes. "You can come to me at any time. Day or night. Nothing is more important to me than you. Do you understand?" "Yes, Dad." Harry nodded and got closer for a hug. Severus could tell the child was trembling. He held him for a couple of minutes. Then he stood up and turning the boy toward the wall he said in a calmed voice. Place your nose in that corner, young man. I need to talk with Madame Pomfrey. Dragon bites are extremely dangerous. Your friend may lose his hand if he does not have the right attention. Harry was worried about Ron. Could you help him? I will try. Harry stood at the corner, his backside was tingling after the smacks he had received and in expectation of the ones that were to come. He was sure that Snape was not going to let him off with only 3 smacks. Harry had been in the corner for 15 minutes when Severus walked back into the living room. He opened a cabinet and Harry heard as he was taking glass vials. Come with me, Mr. Potter. Severus sounded stressed. Where are we going? Harry stood beside him in a moment. To the infirmary. How is Ron? Madame Pomfrey had guessed that he needed anti-venom and applied it all night, but he needs more because the dragon is young and does not control the venom in his bites. Why do I have to go to the infirmary? Because I do not know long I will have to be there and do not want to leave you alone here. And because Madame Pomfrey needs to run a diagnostic on you and Miss Granger to see if the dragon infected you with something. If I were in as much trouble as you are, young man, I would keep my mouth shut. But you said that you would help. I am helping. I do not want you in the same country as that dragon. That doesn't mean that you are out of trouble for not telling me before or because you skipped a class and lunch today. Oh, indeed. How were you planning to take him up to the tower at midnight on Saturday? After curfew and breaking a lot of school rules? Harry was sure that Snape was not going to punish him for something he had not done yet, but he said softly, I am sorry. We had not planned that yet. Severus hugged him again. It was hard to be a father. They entered the infirmary and found that Hermione and McGonagall were already there. Harry sat in a chair beside Ron's bed and through teary eyes he saw the reaction his friend was having because of the venom. There seemed to be small insects running through his veins. Hermione sat beside him crying and held his hand. The 2 children watched as the adults gave their friend several vials and saw also how they used their wands to stop the venom. After what seemed an eternity, but were really just 30 minutes, the 3 wizards declared that it was done. Ron's arm was again of a rosy color and he was resting calmly. Hermione and Harry were left alone. Minerva, Severus and Poppy went to the Meadowitch's office and discussed the problem. They were all fond of the half-giant and decided to help with the dragon. Minerva and Severus paid him a visit. Hagrid was very ashamed that his dragon had bitten Ron. But you know how Unones are, they bite everything. He knew that he should have not involved the children, but it just happened. He also thought that the egg would take longer to hatch and thought that the dragon would stay small for almost a year and Hagrid was only a big kid, thought Minerva as she transfigured a cage strong enough to keep the dragon out of reach of the inflammable things in the cabin. Severus sprayed a special liquid to keep the wood from catching fire and placed a small chewing toy in the cage for the dragon to occupy himself. The toy would collect venom from Norbert without harming him. How are we going to carry it up to the tower? Severus asked his colleague. It must weigh at least 100 pounds. You know that dragons react badly to magic. I can put a feather spell to the cage, but the dragon is heavy. I can carry if you let me. I plan to go with the child on anyway. Hagrid would want to stay with his dragon as long as possible. At midnight we can trust that all the children will be in their beds. I will like to place locking charms at the doors of their common rooms until the dragon is gone. It might work, Severus, but Pomona and Phileas would have to be informed, and the less people involved in this mess the better. At least lock your tower. There was only one Gryffindor that worried Severus. I will do that. Minerva looked at the dragon and hoped that she could transfigure it into a smaller version, one that could fit in a small cage. It was not possible, and she imagined that Hagrid would love to keep the dragon if it could stay of that size. As Saturday was coming very soon, they decided to keep the plans for the dragon. Minerva and Snape were going to go with Hagrid to take the beast up to the tower at the appointed time. They went back to the infirmary. Weasley was sleeping peacefully. Harry and Hermione were seated beside him. Harry felt tired when he followed Snape back to the dungeons. Severus let him enter and closed the door. Harry, wash your hands and get ready for bed. Harry's face fell. He thought that he was going to be sent to bed without dinner. His stomach started protesting and he tried to quiet it. You are going to bed after dinner, child, so get change. Snape had noticed. Yes, sir. Harry should know that Snape was not going to send him to bed hungry. Harry went back wearing pajamas and a robe. The table had soup and sandwiches. He ate them in silence. Nor him or his father seemed inclined to talk. Madame Pomfrey ran some diagnoses on Hermione and me, he informed. Yes. She told me that she did not find anything wrong. Severus seemed very interested cutting his sandwich. Harry kept talking. We did not know that dragons could be so dangerous. That is why you will prepare a 3-foot essay about dragons, to be delivered on Monday. Harry made a face. Professor McGonagall said that I will have to serve detention for skipping class. She is your head of house and that is a school punishment. The essay is part of your home punishment. Harry pouted. He did not like to be punished at school and at home for the same thing. Snape continued as they as well should finish with the consequences of the foolery. You will help me prepare ingredients and wash cauldrons tomorrow afternoon and you will also give me an essay about the class that you missed. Yes, sir. I want you to be careful with the handling of magical creatures and I want you to ask me before getting close to anything else. Am I clear? Yes, sir. Have you finished your dinner? Dessert? You won't have dessert until next Monday. Do you have homework to do? No, sir. Take your potions book and review last class lesson. There might be a quiz tomorrow. Yes, Dad. Harry did not want to study, but knew that if he said anything else he would be sent to bed. Harry went to take the book out of his backpack, and went with Snape to the living room. Snape sat on the sofa and Harry wedged beside him with the book in his hands. They moved until they were comfortably seated. Snape was reading a journal and watched as Harry read the book. He was so glad that the child had not been harmed by the dragon. After an hour the boy yawned and Severus knew that it was time to send him to bed. Wash your teeth and get in bed. I will go and put out the light for you. Harry looked at him and he could tell that the boy was going to ask him something, but changed his mind and went to the bathroom. 10 minutes later Snape entered Harry's room. The bed covers were placed aside, but the young man was not there. Snape looked in the bathroom and found him. Did it take you this long to wash your teeth? I have not washed them, yet. Harry showed him the toothbrush. What are you waiting for? Snape was a little annoyed. Can't the child follow such a simple instruction? What was the problem? Harry, he said. Why is it taking you so long? Ron was really sick. We were so close and we didn't know that it was so dangerous and, Hagrid. Shush. Snape made him sit in the bed beside him. You are not responsible for all that, son. Yes. You should tell me as soon as you find that there is a problem. That way I would help you. But Hagrid is an adult. He should be able to handle his own problems. He thinks that Norbert is cute. Snape laughed a little. Yes, he does. So, we are dealing with the dragon. There is no more problem, okay? Harry nodded. And we have dealt with your faults, so let's put this behind us. Snape helped him clean his face. Aren't you going to spank me? Severus knew that that had been on Harry's mind since the end of dinner. I think you have enough already, son, and I believe you are still feeling the smacks that I gave you this afternoon. That was all for this time. But Dad, Snape did not allow him to finish. Lay on your stomach on the bed. Harry was regretting his comment. Snape had not planned to spank him more and now he had reminded him. He placed himself over the bed with his back up. He buried his face on the pillow and waited for the smacking to start. He felt Snape's hand, but not on his beeps. The man placed his hand on his back and started massaging him. He rubbed over Harry's shoulders and felt the boy relax to his touch. It has been an exiting week for you, child. You are so tense. After some minutes the boy was almost asleep. Snape stopped the massage and covered him with the blankets. Now go to sleep. Good night, thank you, Dad. Severus felt his heart swell. After the emotional roller coaster ride that he took this day, it was worth it to be a father. It was Saturday afternoon and Hermione and Harry were at the school library researching for Harry's essay. Do you think that Professor McGonagall would inform my parents? I don't know, shrugged Harry. They called Mr. and Mrs. Weasley but they have not said anything about a D. Hermione did not say the word in case someone hear her. I heard them tell Ron that he should be careful with the exotic plants, said Harry. I hope she doesn't. After the troll they said, I don't want to be grounded during the summer. At least you do not have to write an essay. That is easy, Harry. You should have finished hours ago. I told you to stop drawing. I want to draw how Norbert would look as an adult. I bet Hagrid would like to have it. What are you doing in here, Potter? They had not heard the blond boy entering the library. Writing an essay, Malfoy, you are not writing. I have to deliver it on Monday. It's about dragons. I do not remember that we had any pending paper about that. Is it an extra credit? No, your head of house asked for it. I do not remember Professor Snape talking about dragons in class. What did you do? It is none of your business. It is if you can't go out and fly. I wanted to borrow your broom. I can't go out until I finish this. 3 feet. So it was something big. Malfoy saw the open books. Maybe as big as a dragon. Hermione flinched. Malfoy knew that he was onto something. You are funny, Malfoy, said Harry, changing the color of his pencil. Not really, I did hear a rumor. Harry was drawing, so he didn't realize that Malfoy was fishing for information. Where did you hear it, Malfoy? The only ones that know about it are my father and McGonagall. Harry, Hermione exclaimed. So there is a dragon. But you said, you are so easy to make to talk, Potter. Malfoy sat beside him and, taking a blank piece of paper, started drawing. Tell me, he said in a conspiratorial tone. I can't. Simon, where is Weasley? Infirmary. So he was hurt by the dragon, but where did you find it? A dragon is too big to be in the Forbidden Forest. Malfoy, if I tell you, I will have more trouble than just having to write an essay. I will help you write it. Malfoy, it is his work. It's not homework, Granger. No, but he is supposed to learn from it. I will help you write it and then we can go out and fly. Don't you want that? Yes. Harry, Professor Snape would realize that it is not in your handwriting. I am not going to write it for him. I will only comment on it and Potter may write it. Okay. Harry did not look at Hermione. Malfoy took some of the books that were around and took some notes in a piece of paper. Harry was finishing with the drawing when he said, I think that you are playing with me. There is no dragon. Yes, there is. Harry covered his mouth with his hands. Where is it, Potter? Harry knew that half the story was out already, so he said, Hagrid's cabin. Malfoy was more than interested. The only dragons he had seen had been in pictures. Hagrid, would he let me see it? If you ask him, how big is it? You are going to be in so much trouble, Harry. Hermione kept warning Harry. You won't be able to see it, Malfoy. Hagrid won't let you, and it is going to be sent to a sanctuary tonight. Wow. And how did he come to find a dragon? I am not sure, but he has always liked dragons. Harry. Hermione. What? Asked the girl. Had her friend realized that whomever gave the dragon to Hagrid could have obtained the clue to go by the 3-headed dog and steal the stone? Stop saying my name like that, said Harry. Boys were so exasperating. She sulked behind the book she was reading. So I won't be able to see the dragon. Harry looked at the blond boy. Draco was not his friend, but they had done things together and it had been fun to ride in the snow, and they had flown also, and Harry wanted to see Norbert for a last time, and his restless bone was tickling. You could, if you hide tonight at midnight in the tallest tower. Are you serious? Draco knew that he would be in a lot of trouble if he was to be caught outside his dorm after curfew. Did Potter want him to be in trouble? Were they friends? Would you come with me? Do you know what my father will do to us if we are caught out of our dorms after curfew? That was a challenge. And after all the trouble you already are in because of that creature, said a voice behind a book. Malfoy looked at him. He caught us last year, Potter. We are smarter now. The challenge was accepted. I have to find out what is my father going to do this evening. Let's finish with your work and go flying before it gets dark. Harry finished writing his essay and they went out to fly in the Quidditch camp. Then Harry and Hermione went to see Ron. Hi there, guys. Ron, how do you feel? Much better. I just feel a tingle in the place that Norbert bite me. When are you coming out? Madame Pomfrey said that I can go back to the dorm tomorrow and back to class on Monday. Are your parents still in the castle? No, they left after lunch. What have you been up to? Nothing much. I had to write an essay for my father. He was very angry, but we didn't know how dangerous such a small dragon could be. Madame Pomfrey said that if you had not told them about the dragon, I could have died because of the poison or lost my hand. Dad said that I should have told him the moment that you were bitten. It's still strange to hear you call him Dad. I am used to it. I have to be careful and remember calling him professor in class and in the halls. What else did you do today, mate? I drew a picture of Norbert. And told the story to Malfoy, completed Hermione. Malfoy knows about Norbert? I did not mean to tell him, I thought he already knew. Norbert will be on his way to Romania by midnight, so I guess there is no problem. No one will believe that a dragon was here. Harry wants to hide in the tower tonight with Malfoy and show him the dragon. Harry, what? You are not going to tell me that it is dangerous, are you? I want to go. I was your friend before Malfoy. Ronald, you too, can't any of you realize the tons of trouble you will be in? You may lose points, we are going to get the house cup and... At what time does Madame Pomfrey expect you asleep? 9.30, but I can pretend I am sleepy before. No, that is fine. Tell her that you are a little cold, so she will close the curtains around you. Try to sneak out as soon as she enters her office. Malfoy and I will meet outside the Charms classroom. It is the one nearest the tower and they have to take those stairs to go up, so it will be a good place to be in. We will stay there in the dark and see the dragon pass, then we will just go back to bed. All that trouble for a small glimpse of a dragon, if you ask me. I looked at him long enough. The boys had tuned Hermione out. Are you sleeping in the dungeons? Not today. Snape said that I have to sleep in the tower. He does not want to leave me alone. As if I were to start a fire or something. I am not a baby, it is better like this. The wards in my room would tell him if I go out. We'll meet with Malfoy at 10. Is that why you are doing this, Harry? Because Professor Snape told you that you could not sleep in your room tonight? Hermione, you are welcome if you want to come with us. If not, please stop nagging. I don't nag. I just want to understand. Sorry, Hermione. I know it is mischief, but nothing more. I will come with you. Hermione decided. Harry was going to get in trouble and there was nothing she could say to stop him. She could at least go with him and help him if possible. Harry left his friends and went to the dungeons. Snape was not there. Harry guessed that he was probably with Hagrid getting the things ready for Norbert to go. Well, if he wanted Harry out of the way, he would only place the essay on Snape's desk and go to his common room. It would help if he did not see Snape this afternoon. The man had the uncanny ability of reading Harry's thoughts. He was about to go out when Severus arrived. The man looked happy to see him. Harry. Hello, son. Hello, sir. Snape had talked with Harry the day before, while they were in the lab. Harry was washing cauldrons and the professor was grading the quizzes. But I can help you. You can help me more if you stay in your bed and rest, son. Minerva, Hagrid and I are more than capable of carrying the dragon up to the tower, but if something goes wrong it will help me to know that you are out of danger. I am not a baby. Harry mumbled and attacked the cauldron. What was that? Harry knew that Snape had a very good hearing. Nothing. Just that this cauldron is really dirty. That is what happens when you do not mix the ingredients with the correct timing, they stick together. Snape used every available occasion to teach. I could carry something you need, said Harry after rinsing the cauldron. What do you mean? Snape had forgotten what they were talking about. He was trying to understand what was scribbled on the parchment. He couldn't fathom why girls insisted in using different colors and placing small hearts instead of dots in the eyes. I said that I could help by carrying Norbert's food or maybe as a lookout. Harry. I am not going to keep on discussing this matter. You won't come with us, no matter how much help you think you can give us. You will be in your bed, in your dorm and inside your tower. That is my final word. Are we clear? Yes, sir. If you have finished, dry your hands and help me sort this cupboard. I need you to find the vials that are almost empty. Do I have to wash them also? I would appreciate the gesture. Your detention ends at dinner time. Please wash as many as possible. Yes, sir. Harry opened the cupboard and started collecting the empty vials. He kept quiet most of the time, only asking Snape some questions about the vials. He washed them all before dinner. When they were leaving the lab, Snape placed his arm around him and asked, Harry, you understand that all I want is to keep you out of danger, don't you? Yes, sir. Snape stretched the hug. Good boy, what do you want for dinner? Harry felt strange to face Snape now, when he was planning so much mischief. He had to be careful. I saw you flying with Draco while I was with Hagrid. Yes, he likes to use my broom. Is everything ready with Norbert? Yes. Hagrid spent all the night writing instructions to the people that would take care of him. I will have dinner with Ron in the infirmary. That is good. We'll see at breakfast and I will tell you all that happened, okay? Yes, sir. Harry left fast. Snape thought that the boy was still sulking about not being able to go with him. Too bad. The place of a young boy was not to be in the proximity of a dragon. They would see each other for breakfast the next morning. Harry ran to the infirmary. He wanted to stay in his room, but, he thought, it was good that he was going to sleep in the tower, or he wouldn't be able to go out after curfew. He found Neville, Dean and Seamus discussing Quidditch with Ron. They decided to stay there with Harry and Ron for dinner. Madame Pomfrey had no other sick person in the infirmary, so she allowed them to stay and cheer Ron up. They did not have to stay silent. After dinner she did send them to their common room, because she needed to change the bandages on Ron's hand. Harry went out with his dorm mates and entered the Gryffindor tower. Hermione was in the common room reading a book. Harry went to sit by her. "Are you going to do it, Harry?" she said without taking her eyes from the book. "Yes, are you coming?" Harry was decided. Hermione sighed, "Yes. I will have to wait for Lavender and Parvati to be asleep. We had to go in separate ways. I will tell the guys that I am sleeping in the dungeons so they won't be surprised when I leave. I will wait until 5 minutes before curfew. There is so many comings and goings on Saturday nights that the fat lady won't know who is in or out." Hermione placed her book down. "We will meet at the Charms classroom around 10. Harry went up to his dorm. "Be careful," he heard as he was going upstairs. "You too." Harry looked at his friend. She was scared but resolute. Ron and he were not a very good influence. He went to his trunk to get his cloak. He knew that he was being very naughty, but he had been a very good boy for more than 2 months. And his father thought that he was a baby. Malfoy did not know about the cloak and Harry hoped that they would not have to use it. This was pure mischief. Harry sat beside the wall on the Charms classroom and must have fallen asleep, because he was awakened by Ron. "Wake up, mate." "Ron, ready, pal?" "Yes." Malfoy arrived minutes later. "Sorry I was late. I had to wait for the prefects to go to sleep. I think that Snape told them to be sure everyone was in bed." "Don't worry, anyway they will be here close to midnight." They heard movement and Hermione appeared, with Neville. "You didn't tell me that I could bring a friend," said Malfoy. "This is getting too crowded," said Ron. Neville was in the common room and insisted. "I have always liked dragons. What do we do now? We must be really quiet, and wait. What time is it?" "Almost 11. Hermione used a time charm." "How can you do that so easily?" asked Neville. "Because even thought she is Muggle-born, she has brains." Malfoy surprised himself thinking this, for several reasons. First, he resented the girl, because she always knew the answers, but he thought of her as a pest, not as smart. And second, he did not say it out loud, which was good, because he could imagine the Gryffindors ganging on him defending Longbottom. He may have melted his brain along with his cauldrons, but he knew how to make friends. How could he be a pureblood? Malfoy concluded that he was too well bred and knew when to keep quiet. They sat with their backs to the wall to wait. They had to be quiet. They knew that Filch was patrolling the corridors and his cat was really nasty. She had a very good ear. Harry thought that this felt very much like standing with his nose in the corner, not able to say a word and with lots of time to think about what he had done and what he would do next. He looked at his sides and saw his friends sitting silently. Hermione was explaining to Neville with signs the movements he should make for the time charm. Neville followed her, tentatively until he could do it. Neville beamed at his teacher. Malfoy was on his left. The blond boy waited expectantly. They may not be able to look at Norbert. His father had said that the cage that Professor McGonagall had created was very sturdy and did not allow him to reach out. And it would be carried by Hagrid. Ron was looking at the bandage in his hand. He said that he was all right, but in the pale light Harry could see that he still had a taint of green. Why were they here? This was not a rescue mission or an investigation. They had successfully left their beds. Would they be able to go back without being caught? What did he, the instigator, really want? Harry wanted Snape, no Snape, his father, to catch him. He wanted to show him that he was not a baby, that he could help. That he did not need to be sent to bed when something dangerous was happening. Harry had in his room a copy of the adoption papers signed by the Minister Fudge. That plus the adoption ceremony said that he was Snape's son. He had felt the magic inside him when they touched their fingers with the pinpricks and their blood mixed, but he did not trust that it was permanent. It was too good. Harry had been told since before he could remember that he was a burden, a freak, and that no one could love him, ever. He was told that he didn't deserve anything. And Severus, his father, had said some very different things. He had given him warm clothes and support, and he said that he loved him, and the magic wouldn't have worked otherwise, would it? The previous night, Harry had overheard Professor Dumbledore and his father talking about what happened on the Ministry of Magic the day they got the papers. They had used some magic balls to make the minister believe that he shouldn't go against the adoption ritual, but had they used something similar the day of the adoption, Harry wanted to believe that he had felt the love reaching out from his parents and from his new father, but could that be only make-believe, an illusion? Would sooner or later his father realize that he was a burden and would want to discard him? He should allow Snape to know that he was troublesome and disobedient and reckless, and he should have a chance to get out of adopting Harry, but his friends shouldn't be here. They had to go back to their beds. Reaching a decision, he turned to his friends. "Hey guys, I have thought about this, and we should go back to our houses." "What about the dragon?" said Malfoy and Neville. "I do not think that we would be able to see it, guys, and there is a very big probability that we would be caught, and I do not want you to lose points." Hermione looked at him. "Harry, I think it is too late to go back." They heard voices in the corridor. They were hidden in the dark. Hagrid was sniffling, and somehow he was trying to negotiate with the schoolteachers to let him keep Norbert for a little longer. "Just for a fortnight, Professor. I'm sure that the Lily one would learn to behave, and Hagrid, Norbert will have a nice place with members of his species. That is better. A wild beast like him needs open fields to grow," McGonagall explained. "But the other dragons may not like him." "Of course they will. Won't they, Severus?" Harry could hear his father's sarcasm in a low snort he gave. "I should have given him a snack for the way, Don, you think?" "I am sure that he will be fine, Hagrid." McGonagall was leading the party up. Hagrid was behind her, carrying the caged dragon, and Snape was last. Inside the cage, Norbert was restless. He did not like to be carried this way, and somehow felt Hagrid's distress, and he translated that distress into hunger. He smelled around and caught a smell of food, something he had eaten before. He had smelled Ron, and Ron's injury that was still slightly open under the bandages. Norbert knew that there was food near. He felt the movement of the man that was holding him and whirled. Hagrid let the cage go. It fell to the floor and the door opened. McGonagall was 10 feet ahead. She turned to look. The small dragon got out of the cage and walked toward a classroom. Hagrid saw the dragon and tried to call him. He was after all his mum. Snape was approximately 8 feet behind. He heard the crash and looked for something to transfigure into a rope, to tie the beast. The dragon was heading into an empty classroom. He would not have room to run farther. He and Minerva would be able to place him back in the cage. He was not counting on the scream he heard. It sounded as if 5 voices screamed at the same time. For an instant Severus thought that it was a nightmare. It couldn't be. Harry was in his bed at the tower, Minerva had said. He entered the classroom and saw a scary look. His son, Harry, was holding a chair and using it to keep the dragon back. Beside him, Draco Malfoy was holding a desk from the top and using the legs to fend also. Granger, Longbottom and Weasley were also there, with their wands in their hands. Stupid children, what were they doing here? The children were not scared. They had been startled at first, and knew that the dragon shouldn't bite them. But the dragon was not that big. He was half their size, and it did look cute walking towards them and moving his wings. The dragon opened his mouth, recognizing Harry and Hermione, whom had fed him, and also Ron, whom he had tried to eat. Minerva appeared beside him and transformed a chair into a glass wall that protected the children. Then Hagrid entered and held his pet from behind. He wanted to be sure that he was all right, before placing him carefully inside the cage. "Come, Norbert. Come to Mama." The little dragon was placed without problem in the cage. Hagrid then turned and looked at the captive audience. "Shouldn't these children be in bed?" asked the half-giant. Both Minerva and Snape looked at their charges. 4 Gryffindors and 1 Slytherin. Then at each other. They were angry, confused and plain tired. Minerva looked at her watch and saw that midnight was very close. Let's go up to the tower and deliver the dragon, Severus. They can't get out of there. The children saw the two teachers go in silence. Harry leaned on the glass wall and let himself slide down to the floor. His father's look had pierced him to the soul. Something was sure. If Snape was going to repent from being his father, this was the moment. McGonagall, Snape and Hagrid arrived at the top of the tower and saw in the sky that someone was coming. They saw them approaching and were faced with 3 wizards in brooms holding a harness. The wizards landed and after short greetings secured the cage of the little dragon, balancing the weight. It seemed that they do that frequently, then they flew away, after Hagrid asked them to take a good care of his little Norbert and gave them the list of recommendations that he had written. It all happened in less than 8 minutes. Hagrid used a big handkerchief to clean the tears that keep coming from his eyes as his latest pet flew away. McGonagall patted his back. She did not really had much to say. I'm sorry, Professor. I can't help it. I just love, I am. It's late, Rubius. Let's go to rest. Yes, ma'am. They turned to go back downstairs. Professors, I don't want to intrude, but those youngster, I mean they were just curios. No harm was done in. I got them involved first. Thank you, Hagrid. Minerva saw him folding his handkerchief after mopping his eyes again. I'll go now. Thank you for your help with Norbert. Do not mention it, Rubius. There was not use in trying to curb the big man affection to dangerous creatures. Hagrid went downstairs ahead of the professors. Minerva walked beside Severus in silence. They arrived to the charms classroom eventually. The 5 children were sitting together, looking through the crystal wall that kept them inside. Severus could see that they were still but not asleep. He turned to talk to McGonagall. I'll take Potter and Malfoy, Minerva, if that is okay with you. It is not okay if it means that there are going to be 2 less students in the school tomorrow, Severus. Snape gave one of his looks to the meddling witch. But she was immune to that kind of things. I can control myself, Minerva. I think that we are all tired. Severus. Weasley needs to go back to the infirmary before Poppy starts looking for him. I think that she has enough beds to accommodate this miscreants. We'll sort them out in the morning. I am not going to. Minerva stopped him, showing him her hand. I am sure that you will be welcome to stay in the infirmary also, Severus. For my part, one need to cuddle in front of the fire, so. I can't understand him. He said that he understood why I did not want him along. You may ask for explanations in the morning. Are you ready now? Severus breathed deeply. I am. In that case, loose that look of inquisitor, young man. The children need to sleep, not be haunted by that expression. They entered the room and McGonagall made the wall disappear. Then with some wand movements the classroom was put to rights. Come with me. She told the troop. Yes, ma'am, was the answer. It seemed that only Hermione was able to talk. McGonagall walked in front of them. Hermione was behind her, then Neville, Ron, Harry and Draco. Snape walked behind without a word. He was trying to read the child that surely had initiated this adventure. Harry was making a big effort not to cry. He felt guilty that he had dragged his friends into this disaster. If he wanted to get in trouble, he did not need to be with them. Ron was keeping pace with him and told him. It was exciting, mate. I think that Norbert remembered us and only wanted to play. How do you feel? Tired? It was only bad luck, mate. Ron felt that his friend needed some support. Snape will have our hides, Potter. Malfoy walked beside them. He was just a realist. Madame Pomfrey is going to place a sticking charm on my bed. Do you think they will take points? Harry remembered how worried was Hermione about points. I wouldn't worry about that. We will be death coming the morning. Malfoy was enjoying his last moments. Where do you think they will take us? This is not the way to McGonagall office, whispered Hermione. I'm sorry I made you come. You did not make us, mate. Ron appreciated the distraction. At least I got to see a dragon face to face, said Neville. Hermione placed her hand over Harry's arm. There was not much she could say, but she was not going to stop being his friend. They arrived to the infirmary soon enough. The Medowitch was aware of her missing patient and had already sent a message to Minerva. Ronald was hurried back to his bed after a quick diagnose spell. He had to drink a disgusting draught for the swelling in his hand. He did not have time to say goodbye to his co-conspirators but learned that they would all sleep there. Minerva explained to Poppy in few words their need to use the infirmary. The Meadowitch understood and moved her wand accordingly. Children, you will find pajamas over those beds. Get ready for bed and be quick about it, it is late enough. Madame Pomfrey took charge of her infirmary. Hermione was the first one to choose a bed. Madame Pomfrey closed the curtains around it. Neville hesitantly took the one next to her. Malfoy looked at his head of house. This was different from the usual way to be dealt in Slytherin. Snape made a movement with his head and Malfoy went to the next bed. Harry wanted to sleep and to pretend that it had only been a bad dream. He looked at the livid adult behind him and chose the last bed. His curtains also closed behind him. Snape had not uttered a word. That was very bad. Harry was not going to stand it if Snape were to hate him again. He removed his clothes and realized that his robes were torn. Norbert had barely reached him but he had nasty claws. This were his new robes. Snape would also realize that he was ungrateful and, having changed into his pajamas and being secure in the bed, Harry allowed himself to cry. Snape heard him in the adjacent bed. Good, the little menace knew that he was in deep trouble, he thought. It was good to let him cry for a moment. The child needed to let off a little steam after the events of the night. Severus decided to intervene when after 5 minutes the sobbing increased and it seemed that the child was without consolation. Snape's anger had dissolved completely. He opened the curtains around Harry's bed and sat on the bed beside his son. He placed his hand on the child's back. It took Harry some moments to realize that he was not alone. He heard the voice but was too immersed in his sorrow. Snape placed his arms around the child and moved him in a way that he was embracing him. He held Harry as tight as possible, asking him to breathe until the sobbing subsided. The child started breathing deeply. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Calm down, son. Let's not talk about what happened. You are tired. You need to sleep. You'll see that with the morning light things won't look so dark. But it was foolish and dangerous and my friends could have been hurt and I disobeyed you and... Shish. It is not the first time that you were disobedient, Harry, and knowing you it won't be the last. I hope that time will cure you of your recklessness. Meanwhile you need to rest. But, shish. Just breathe deeply and try to sleep. Harry took a deep breath. He felt the special smell of the potion master. It was nice to be held like this by his father. He was startled again. But you won't want to be my father anymore. Why not? It's okay. I know that I am too much of a problem, and it is better like this. You do not have to, I understand, it was nice. Snape felt a pang in his heart. The child didn't want to be his son anymore? That was too bad. After the blood ritual they were as much father and son as if he had gotten Lily pregnant, and Harry couldn't fight the sleep anymore. He snuggled up into the arms that were holding him and fall asleep. Snape snorted. For someone that did not want to have him as father anymore, Harry was too comfortable in his arms. He moved until his back could be rested on the headboard and closed his eyes, holding the child that would be his death. Harry did not wake up until the morning. He did not feel when the potions professor place him on his pillows or tuck him in at 3 in the morning. Severus was going back to his bed when he remembered the terror he felt after he recognized Harry's scream inside the charms classroom. He felt like dying when he recognized his child fighting with the dragon using a chair. Severus transfigured a rocking chair and summoned a blanket. He was too scared to close his eyes and realize that his child had been hurt. Minerva McGonagall woke up rested. She needed a cup of tea and some toast. She called her favorite elf to bring it to her office and prepared several papers. It was inconceivable that 3 of her charges had left her house last night, after she had given specific instructions to the prefects and to the fat lady. She would have to take some drastic measures about that. It was not of much consolation that one of Snape's snakes had been able to snuck out also. She sent notes to the prefects and prepared herself to face her lions. She saw the time and decided to hurry up. Severus had slept in the infirmary and surely he would use that advantage to give the children a good talking to. When Minerva arrived to the infirmary, she realized that the occupants were still asleep. She tiptoed using her abilities as a cat to enter silently and discovered. Minerva. Is there a problem? No, everyone is asleep, are you all right? I placed a calming spell in all, they were too restless, so they had a good night's sleep. I will order breakfast. Do that while I take a quick shower, thank you Minerva. Professor McGonagall was on her way to order breakfast when she decided to ask Severus what he preferred. His bed was empty. With a little trepidation in case this meant that she had to address another emergency, she opened the curtain of the next bed and found Severus sleeping on a rocking chair. He was holding Harry's hand. She suppressed a laugh and silently closed the curtain again. Those two had solved their problems last night then. The smell of recently toasted bread and scrambled eggs made the children stir in their beds. Hermione was the first one out. "Miss Granger, good morning, Professor." Neville was next, then Malfoy. He followed Hermione and sat down at the table that had been placed in the middle of the infirmary. Madame Pomfrey arrived and she opened Ron's curtain. The red-headed boy was starving, but he was not able to leave his bed as Madame Pomfrey had placed a sticking charm to his sheets. Harry opened his eyes. He retrieved his hand and the potion's master opened his eyes also. "Good morning, child." Harry knew that he did not deserve the greeting. He closed his eyes and said, "You did not have to stay here." "I had to stay because of the nightmares." "Did I wake you up with a nightmare?" Harry did not remember any nightmare, just that he had cried himself out of any control last night. "Not yours, child. Mine." "You had a nightmare, sir?" "It is a miracle that I only had a nightmare. After my son was attacked by a dragon, I may have had a stroke." "You do not have to be my father if you do not want to. I understand. I am sorry you were scared." Here was the father theme again. Snape hoped that it was only last night. Stress. "What are you talking about, son? Why would I stop being your father? After the blood adoption I can't stop being your father. Even if I wanted to, which I do not." "How do you know that it worked? You deceived the minister. You might have deceived me." Severus was reminded of the conversation he had with Dumbledore. Harry was supposed to be asleep. "So, I have to add eavesdropping to your faults, child. At this rate you won't stop washing cauldrons until your graduation." Severus regretted his intent of joking. The face of Harry fell more if that was possible. Harry tried to explain. "But sir, I know. I do not deserve to have a father. I am a burden and a freak. And I am disobedient, careless, naughty and incorrigible and rude and—" Harry broke down sobbing. He had said it. He would have to learn to live without his Snape. Snape did not know how to deal with this. He knew that on the 2 months previous the child had behaved too well. Harry had been scared of rejection. But how could he doubt the magic that had surrounded them? Then he understood. As Harry had heard about the magic balls and the Minister of Magic. If the Minister of Magic could be deceived, why not an 11-year-old child that was starving for love? Snape sat in the bed and held the child tightly again. The child melted in his arms. This was the child that just last night had used a chair to keep a dragon away from him and his friends. Harry, listen to me." The boy kept crying. Severus realized that he had to do something drastic. Harry James Potter Evans Snape. Harry stopped his sobbing. Snape had never called him by his complete name. Was it really so long? And in that tone of voce, it was better to pay attention. This was the scary Snape of his nightmares. He opened his eyes to look at the man that was holding him. "Are you listening?" said the black eyes as soon as the green touched them. "Yes, sir." Snape used his hand to apply a smack on the child's bottom. "Drop the, sir, son. I am your father and that is the way you are going to call me from now on." The smack was not hard but through thin pajamas it had smarted. "Yes, father." Harry said tentatively he wished he had one more hand to rub his backside, but his 2 hands were busy holding onto his father. "Now, son. You are right, the minister was deceived into thinking that it was dangerous to go against ancient blood magic. But the truth is that he already knew that the ritual was completed. He was angry because we did it without asking the ministry. They're control freaks. And they wanted to bargain with your adoption. They learned about it because it was successful. We both wanted it to happen and it was a nice real ritual. I liked that I felt the magic around you and me. Do you think that could have been faked? I don't know. Well, trust me, it cannot. But I disobeyed you and went out of the dormitory and told Draco and Ron to come with me and Miss Granger and Longbottom. It was as if a picnic was announced. It was like going against the ritual and nothing happened. Were you expecting a bolt of lightning to strike you, son? Harry had his head buried into Snape's robes. He just held Snape tighter. Harry, the ritual made you my son. It was not to change you, you were 11. And a normal child. Of course you are bound to disobey and to make wrong decisions. That is why I'm here. To teach you, you are a child. My child. Do you still want to be my father, then? Snape's answer was another stinging smack. Ouch. That hurt. I have plenty where that come from, and I will keep bringing them if you keep on insisting that you are not my son or that I do not want to be your father. Ouch. Another smack fell. They were not hard, but they were being placed in the same area. For a cumulative smart. Dad, please. I understand. That is better. But how am I to call you when in class? Professor or sir will be appropriate then, but not when we are alone, or with your friends. Then it is dad or father. Understood? Harry nodded into Snape's chest. He remembered then that they were in the infirmary and that his friends were close. Are they hearing us, Dad? No, Harry. I placed silencing charms around your bed. Are you ready for breakfast now? Yes, Dad. Let's go then. Harry took his clothes and put them on. He saw the torn robe and turned to look at his father. Snape used his wand to repair the cloth without any comment. Harry smiled, he loved magic. They walked together toward the table where the rest were already finishing with breakfast. Minerva pointed to 2 covered dishes. Glad you could join us, gentlemen. Thank you for waiting for us, Minerva. Harry sat between Draco and Hermione. Are you all right, Harry? Hermione saw him flinch as he sat down. Yes, Hermione. Minerva informed quietly what were her plans for the miscreants, and he accepted. Professor McGonagall waited until the plates and glasses were empty. Then the lecture started. Minerva reminded them that the rules were placed for their safety and that they had to obey them. That regardless of who had planned it, she looked at Harry. They had shown lack of common sense and excessive inventive, 2 characteristics that were more than dangerous if placed together. She also told them that they were children and that they should rely to be protected by their seniors and the adults residing in the castle. She stated that the prefects of their respective houses were also held accountable for their foolishness, and that would serve detentions, one with her and one with the potions master, where they would review the reasons why they were made prefects and given the position of authority and responsibility in their respective houses. Then came the consequences for the 5 dragon hunters. The 5 children would have a set time for going to bed for a week, and they would be given a token by their house prefect each night when they were in their beds. They would be required to present all those tokens to their head of house at the end of their confinement. If they presented the 7, restriction would be over. If even 1 token was missing, they would stay on restriction for another week. The set time would be 8:00 p.m. As they had astronomy at midnight, that day they would have to be in bed 25 minutes after the class ended. They were also going to serve detentions. 2 with McGonagall and 2 with Snape. They were forbidden from any extra scholar activity during that week. In Harry's case, it meant that he was not going to be allowed to practice Quidditch. And each would be given a set of lines to be delivered each day. 100 a day. And last, they would lose 10 points each from their houses. In the case of Gryffindor, it meant 40 points. Snape did not say a word. Come with me to my office, where I will give you the set of lines that you are going to complete, and I will also show you the tokens. You will serve the detentions during the next 2 weeks. McGonagall looked at each child in turn. Mr. Malfoy, you may go with Professor Snape. Mr. Potter, she looked at Snape. Harry, you should go with your head of house. I will meet you at our quarters in 25 minutes. Yes, Dad. Harry entered his and his father's quarters. The corridors were too busy to wait until he opened the door. Dad. Are you here? Over here, Harry, in your room. Harry followed the voice and wondered what was his father doing there. He hoped that he was not removing his new toys as part of the punishment. Severus was setting a mirror. It was a wooden framed mirror, about Snape's size. What are you doing? I don't need a mirror to get dressed. I do not intend it for that, although it would help you get dressed correctly. What is it for? Just give me a moment and I'll explain. Severus took 1 step back and saw that the mirror was settled. The sturdy wooden legs were designed to keep the mirror in place. I have the longest line to write, and McGonagall wants 100 each day, including today. It will help you to practice your calligraphy. Harry knew that his father was not going to be sympathetic at all. There, Snape stood beside Harry. Both their figures reflected in the mirror. Now, son, I want you to stand in front of the mirror and tell me what you see. Is it a magic mirror? Like the erased one, you'll see. Harry stood close to the mirror. He saw only his reflection. His face was kind of dirty. He had broken his record of crying this day. He tried to look behind him, but there was nothing different. Do I need to say some words? Not at all. Just tell me, what do you see? Nothing. Only me. Isn't that enough? Enough? It's just me in the mirror. Yes, it is. And what do you see? Describe it to me. Snape brought a chair to sit close to Harry. Well, I have black hair. That refused to lie down, completed Snape. Harry only looked at him and continued, and green eyes. I have glasses. And I have a straight nose and thin mouth. My face is a little smudged. I guess I should wash it. I am thin and I am wearing the school uniform with my robes. Is that what I am supposed to see? That's you. Now, son. Can you tell me if the boy in the mirror is obedient? Obedient? Yes, or if he is responsible and polite, or if he has good grades, or if he goes to bed on time. That can't be shown in a mirror. Where was the catch? I know. Snape smiled. Harry was confused. It only shows me. It is a normal mirror. It is a great mirror, Harry, because it shows the child I love, and it can't tell me if my son is obedient or studious or stubborn. But it doesn't matter because I love you as you are, Harry, with the good and the bad. Just as you are. Like your reflection. You love me as I am. Harry was digesting the words and about to cry, once more. I wouldn't want to change a hair from your head, son. You love me even when I am disobedient and break curfew. Harry embraced his father, unable to keep talking. So Severus continued where he had left it. And go hunting for dragons in the middle of the night. I may not like what you do, but nothing would make me stop liking you or stop loving you. I am your father. And that is what fathers are for. And I do not want to hear another word about us stopping being father and son. Are we clear? Yes, Dad. Harry felt himself surrounded by the potion's ingredients smells in his father's robes. They embraced for a while. Both of them had tears in their eyes. After some minutes, Harry asked, Dad, are you going to add to Professor McGonagall punishment? Yes, I am, son. I want you to remember before you get yourself in trouble again. But I think that you have enough restrictions, so I think that a smacking is in order. What do you think? You already spanked me this morning. Those smacks were only to get your attention. Snape rubbed circles into Harry's back. Should we get over this now? Harry wanted this to end. Yes, sir. Harry was not expecting the smack that landed at his left beep. Snape should wait until he was in position. Ouch. Remember not to call me sir. Dad, Harry pouted as he was placed over Snape's lap. Severus gave him 6 sound smacks, then stood him up and held him again. Harry was glad that he wouldn't have more essays or lines to write, and because he felt that the matter was closed for his father. He cried into the embrace, relieved that his fears were subdued. He had a new mirror to remind him. The smarting of the smacks faded fast. After some minutes his father said, Wash your face and hands, we'll have lunch and then we'll go to Hogsmeade. I know of a boy that needs some ice cream before he starts to write his lines. On Sunday Harry woke in his room in the dungeons and looked around. He was happy to be there. It had been a very tiring week. And he had only been able to see his father in class. With his bedtime set at 8, he had very little time to visit or to do anything fun. He had to have his homework ready before dinner, as after dinner he had to use all the time available to write lines. Nobody knew about the dragon, but everyone learned about the 5 children that were caught after curfew, and learned about the trouble they were in. The teachers had not been sympathetic. They had assigned researches and essays as if theirs were the only classes Harry was taking. And Binns had asked him for extra work because of the class he missed. Even his father, he had transformed into the evil Git from the dungeons and asked for thousands of ingredients properties to be researched for the next class, and then made them brew from memory a laughing potion. As if there was anything to laugh about. And his fellow housemates had been very angry about the 40 points that were deducted from Gryffindor that had placed them behind in the contest for the House Cup. They made snide remarks about the point-losing babies, and the Gryffindor prefects. They were nasty, covered in honey. He knew that his father and Professor McGonagall had lectured them until they wished their ears would fall off, and the potions master had made them prepare the most disgusting ingredients. But they enjoyed in a sadistic way that they had to supervise the foolish firsties to bed each night. Hermione, Ron, Neville and Harry had to stay in the common room for most of the time after dinner, and at 7:30 one of the prefects would say, "It's time to get our babies ready for bed," and they would help them pack their backpacks and ask them to go up to their rooms. The rest of the Gryffindors would only enjoy the show, and some would make comments like, "Lovely babies," or that they should wear nappies. Harry had protested one of the days, and the prefect, Percy Weasley, presented him with a pacifier the next night, and placed it in Harry's mouth before giving him the token. Then one would go up with Hermione and wait for her to put on her pajamas and get ready for bed. And gave her the token. That was not so bad, but Percy went with Ron, Harry and Neville, and he was really unpleasant with Ron. One night he made him change his underwear twice. And did threaten to have him wear nappies. Once they were in bed, he always asked them if they wanted a story. And it didn't matter what they answered, he always sat and made like opening a book and sat there telling them stories about bad boys that were eaten by giants or by monsters or wild animals because they were disobedient. Only when he had given them the grossest details, he made to tuck their beds and gave them the token. And to add insult to injury, the token was a small dragon figurine. Professor McGonagall had a very crooked sense of humor. Fortunately, the 6 nights had passed and Harry and his friends gave the tokens to their head of house on Saturday evening. McGonagall gave them a small lecture and reminded them that the following of the rules was for their safety, and then allowed them to go. Harry was allowed to visit his father and to sleep in his bed that night. Harry stretched like a cat, and thought that he would like to have pancakes for breakfast. Then he thought that it would be fun to be a cat. He remembered that his cousin, once when they were 6 or 7, had said at the breakfast table that he was going to be a monkey. Aunt Petunia had looked at him adoringly and asked what that meant, and Dudley had refused to speak. He just screeched and tried to sound like a monkey. Aunt Petunia was amazed, and she said that Dudley could be a little monkey for the day and gave him bananas and oranges. And later gave him ice cream, and spoon-fed him with soup. Harry knew that monkeys did not eat ice cream, but he was not asked his opinion. Dudley had kept acting like a monkey until bedtime, when he said that he was going to be a boy again, and Aunt Petunia said she was glad because she loved her little boy very much. Harry thought it had been funny, although he was made to stay keeping watch of the monkey, and putting to rights all the things he threw down. What would his father said if Harry was to behave like a cat for the day? Harry stretched again and decided to find out. He stayed in bed until he heard sounds from the kitchen and knew his father was preparing breakfast. He went out to inform him he wanted pancakes, but was received by the smell of porridge. Porridge. No whining, child, porridge is a very healthy breakfast. But I want pancakes or waffles or, Snape interrupted him. You have enough sugar on weekdays. I have to see that you have healthy meals at least once a week. But I have grown and I am in the right weight now. Even Madame Pomfrey said so. I do not need fattening anymore. Wash your hands. Breakfast is ready. You may have a fried egg and toast after you finish your porridge. Harry obeyed, knowing that there was no use to fight with his father over breakfast. He was in the middle of it when he asked, "What are you going to do today?" "I have a lot of things to grade. And as owls and newts are near, I have scheduled some meetings with the 5th and 7th years after lunch. Have you started reviewing for your finals?" "Hermione has been preparing since March. I am glad, she is a good student, but I asked about you. I do not want to study today. It's Sunday. I expect you to have good grades, son. So if you do not want to study, what do you want to do?" I want to be a cat." "What are you talking about, child?" Snape took a look at the porridge. Had the child eaten something that made him have that notion? "I do not want to transform into a cat. Professor McGonagall can do it. It is weird. But I want to pretend that I am a cat." Harry knew that it sounded childish. Would his father remind him that he was 11, almost 12 years old? He looked at the stern man. Severus looked at him up and down. Just pretend? Meow. Snape was amazed. Harry had the strangest notions. "So you are going to mule away your day?" Meow. "And what does a cat do for fun?" Harry had not given it a lot of thought. He was glad that his father had decided to play along. Harry went to his room and took a blanket from his bed. Then he went to the living room and placed it over the sofa. He placed the blanket, making a small cave, and snuggled in the sofa with it covering him, and smiling said, "Meow. So my cat wants to stay cuddled in a blanket all day. Meow. Suit yourself, my child. I am going to review papers until lunch." Harry snuggled and closed his eyes. What do cats do for fun? He remembered that Mrs. Fig had a lot of cats, and mostly they just lie on chairs or on the sun. Some others like to play chase and pounce on each other. Harry opened one eye and looked at his father. There were several piles of papers in front of him. He bet that he wouldn't take it well if Harry pounced on the desk. What else? There were 2 cats that always wanted to be petted and pestered Harry until he gave up and rubbed their backs. That would be nice, like the night his father rubbed his back until he fell asleep. Harry closed his eyes again and may have fallen asleep because he felt hungry when he opened them again. Meow. Meow. Severus looked from his place to the child. I see that you are awake now, lazy cat. It's almost lunchtime. Would you want some cat food? Harry shook his head. Meow. Picky, that is all that cats should eat. People food makes them sick. Harry shook his head. Meow. I will feed a child, not a cat. It was Snape's moment to be stubborn. But he wanted to talk with his son and it would be tiring with him mewling. Harry shook his head. Meow. Again, and made him tender wanting eyes. How about some tuna salad? Relented Severus. Meow, meow. Good, and some chicken soup, but you have to use spoons and forks. Meow. Assented the boy. Harry knew he was being foolish, but it was fun. Snape had received some parenting books the day of the child's shower, and had read parts. He guessed that Harry was behaving like a much younger kid because he had missed being able to fool around, as his relatives did not allow him to play, and also because he trusted him completely and was not scared of being ridiculed or harmed in any way. The cat child ate his soup and salad happily. Severus insisted that he should drink some milk with his meal and the pretended pet did not protest. After they finished the meal, Harry took his father's sleeve and pulled him mewling to the sofa, where he sat behind him and placed his head under Severus' hand. What are you doing, cat Harry? Meow, meow, meow. Now you want to be petted, don't you? The boy nodded. Meow. Snape looked at him. I am getting tired of this nonsense, child, he said, but started petting him. He placed his hand under Harry's pajama jacket and scratched his back softly. The boy was almost purring. And you are still in your night clothes. You should be doing something else. He gave Harry a light slap in the rump. There, child, I have to go to my office for a while. You may stay here and keep with your game, or you may go out with your broom. But, said Harry without moving from his father's knees, it is not fun to be a cat if I am alone. I've heard that cats like to be alone. Snape tickled him. I am not that kind of cat, I like to be here with you. But I am busy today, son. We can't stay on the sofa all day. You can if you want. The cat Harry pouted a little. Maybe I will go out and fly. Get dressed first. Can I be a cat later? Like after dinner? You are sleeping in your dorm. Would your housemates play along? No, I don't think so. Next week. Yes, Harry. Severus messed his hair. Get your helmet. Harry left his room dressed and ready to fly. Snape was standing at his desk. I reviewed your essay about dragons, Harry. Harry held his breath. Had his father noticed that he had been helped? Why did you make a drawing? Harry breathed again, but carefully. It is for Hagrid. The picture was in one of the books we used for the research. We? Hermione helped me with the research and also Draco, a little. I see. I noted also that your work was very good. I expect that you will maintain this level of thoroughness on your homework from now on. Severus did not need to look at his son to know that he had flinched. Yes, Dad. You may take the drawing to Hagrid this afternoon. Yes, Dad. Come in before dinner and be careful with his pets. Harry had taken his broom, his helmet and Hagrid's drawing out to the Quidditch field. Ron asked to use his broom first. Hermione had a book and sat reading on the bleachers. Harry sat behind her and asked some questions about the book. After a while he stood up. Where are you going? Are you not going to fly? Hermione closed her book. Ron is going to take a while. I am going to visit Hagrid. Do you want to come? Does he have another surprise? No, I am taking him the drawing I made of Norbert. The two friends walked toward the cabin and found the big man chopping some wood. Hi there, kids. How have you been? Hagrid walked with them inside the cabin. Grounded, said Harry. Hermione nudged him with her elbow. Hagrid did not notice. He placed a teapot on the fire and sat down. I got a letter from Charlie. He said that, The man pulled out a tablecloth-sized handkerchief and dried his eyes. He said that little Norbert is fine, he is making a lot of friends. I wish I could go and visit him. Harry stood up and said, I have something for you, Hagrid. Harry handed him the drawing. Oh, Harry, it is great. Oh, I will place it on my wall, it will remind me of Norbert. The man blew his nose. Dragons are my favorites. Since I was a child, can you stay for some tea? Yes. The children helped Hagrid to place the cups on the table. They saw that Hagrid had moved some of the burnt furniture, but he had kept all. While the teapot started boiling, Hagrid found a tack and placed the drawing near his bed. There, I will be able to see it from my bed. Did you have fun with Hagrid? Yes, we stayed for tea. I've finished with the interviews. Do you want to walk with me to the Great Hall? Yes. What is it? You look worried. I'm a little worried. Is there a lot of homework that you are missing? No, I don't know how we managed with all the lines and the extra homework, but we completed all, even the one that we have to deliver tomorrow. Then what is it? Nothing. Harry, it's not good when you look like that. I am a little worried because of something Hagrid said. Is he planning to adopt a Tyrannosaurus? No, Dad. He said that he explained the guy that gave him the egg how to get past Fluffy, and Fluffy is guarding the stone, and someone is attacking the unicorns. They were walking by the potions classroom. Severus pulled Harry and sat him on one of the tables and asked, How do you know about the stone? Didn't I tell you to keep your nose out of the third-floor corridor? Severus looked very sternly at his son. I haven't gone near there since last year. I found out who was Flammel, and we figured that what Fluffy is guarding is a philosopher stone, and now someone knows how to get past Fluffy. Severus covered his face with his hands. Was every child or only this one so complicated? Son, you know that I do not approve of your snooping around. I was not snooping, I only, Harry interrupted, but closed his mouth at Snape's stare. You were right about what that beast is guarding. But Fluffy is not the only protection in place, there are several others. There are, like what? I am not going to discuss them with you, just rest assured that the stone is safe. I will inform Professor Dumbledore about your findings. We do not only want to protect the stone, we want to catch anyone trying to steal it. Then it's like a trap, isn't it? Yes, it is. I do not want you near there at all. Not only the corridor is out of bounds for you, it's the complete floor, and I do not want you talking about it either. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Dad. Repeat what I said, in your own words. The stone is safe because not only Fluffy is protecting it, you do not only want to keep it safe, you want to trap whomever wants to steal it, and I shouldn't go near the third floor or talk about it. But Ron and Hermione already know, can I tell them? You may only repeat what you have just told me, and they are also forbidden from the proximity of the third floor. Yes, Father. Harry looked at his hands. Severus remembered the other piece of information that Harry had uttered. What did you say about the unicorns? Hagrid is worried because someone killed a unicorn, and Hermione said that if someone is drinking unicorn blood, we guessed that it's the same one that is trying to get the stone. Severus was beginning to feel a headache coming. He could never understand the way young minds could jump to their conclusions. I will ask Hagrid to report his findings to the headmaster. So, do you think we are right? I did not say that. There are dangerous creatures in the forest. Harry, you are also not allowed to go near there, understood? I know it's forbidden. Knowledge has not stopped you in the past. Snape took him by the arms and placed him on the floor. Let's go to dinner and stop worrying about the stone. We are taking care of that. Yes, Father. Severus, I thought it was Phileas' turn to patrol tonight. Minerva saw him from her open door. It is his turn. I needed to walk. Something you need to talk about? Inquisitiveness of a certain green-eyed child. What now? Severus told Minerva about his latest conversation with Harry, about the stone and about the unicorns. If those children were to apply the same efforts in their studies. I know. Are you worried that he will not heed your orders? I know that he will not stop worrying, but I trust that he will obey me. You two have walked a long way. I am sure that it's only baby steps. I may be worrying too much. I've heard that it's part of being a parent, and I am just starting, although I trust that Harry will mind me. There is something dark approaching. We have tried all the protections, Severus. The stone is safe. I am worrying because of one of our colleagues. Quirrell. The man is stranger than ever and he is obsessed with the stone. I have to be careful not to use the lavatory if he is in there. And what do you think? I think that, I may be as delusional as my son, but I think that someone is making Quirrell ask too many questions. He wanted me to explain to him in detail the charms that I placed in the chamber. Did you? Of course not. I told him that transfiguration was a very ample field and allowed to do a lot of things. I may have implied that I had used armors. He pestered me about my part in the protection. I asked him if he had heard about the draft of the living death. Zombies? I did not explain. Do you think he is under any duress? I don't know. Sometimes he is trembling as a tree leaf and sometimes it's like he breakfasted some backbone. Does Harry know about Quirrell's questions? Not at all. He is wary of the man since New Year. The man gives him a headache sometimes. A headache? Poppy believes that it's a kind of allergy. Anyway, Harry does not speak with the man outside of the classroom. Did he mention anything about the restriction? Just that he was glad that it ended. I overheard a little bit of his conversation with his co-conspirators and pacifiers. Nappies and bedtime stories were mentioned. Don't you think that Mr. Weasley was too zealous in his dealings with the lions? Do you think I should look into it? Some retribution was also discussed, so he will be, how may I say it, surprised. As long as they do not make a mess of the common room or the corridors, all is fair play. I would like to be there. We can't sanction it. Pity. Well, I'm glad we talked. Minerva only smiled. Why do you have to go this week? Do I really need to answer that? The seminar was planned a year ahead, Harry. I would like to go with you. You would be bored and you have the end of term tests to present. You have to stay here. You have tests to apply and grade also. Severus detected some defiance in Harry's tone. You are going to be all right, son. I will be back in 4 days. You will be so busy studying that you won't realize that I'm not here. Harry was angry. He couldn't explain why. Some weeks he only saw his father in class, but he knew that Severus was near. He placed the books he was carrying on the table with a big slam. If you are going to throw a tantrum, Mr. Potter, you should plant your nose in that corner until it's over. Harry turned to face him and stamped his foot. I'm not going to stand in the corner. I do not throw tantrums. I do not like your tone of voice. Too bad. I won't talk to you anymore. Harry went to his room and closed the door. Severus noted that he was careful not to slam it. He had heard about the terrible twos. He guessed that this was their equivalent. The terrible pre-teens. He kept choosing the papers he was going to take to the conference. He couldn't understand why Harry was so upset about it. He wished he could cancel, but the seminar took place every 2 years and he was an invited speaker. Severus could sense when Harry opened his door and went out of the room. The dark-haired child was silent, but he could feel the difference in the air. He turned and as expected the boy was standing beside the wall looking contritely at him. May I leave my room now? You tell me. I was not the one who sent you there, was I? No, Dad. Do you want me to stand in the corner? Is your tantrum over? I guess. Get into the bathroom and wash your hands and face. Then come back here, we need to talk. Harry went into the bathroom and Snape heard the water running. Sometimes he only had to wait for a little while for the child to sort himself alone. Harry came back with a clean face and his fringe wet. He stood by Severus and felt his arm around his shoulder. I'm sorry I shouted at you. Where are your shoes? Snape felt Harry shrug. In my room. You said I shouldn't lie in bed with them on. At least you remember half my instructions. I also told you that you shouldn't walk barefooted in the dungeons. He used his wand to summon Harry, slippers. Harry placed them on his feet. I am sorry. Child. You are old enough to use words to express your feelings. There is no need to throw a tantrum. My cousin would throw himself to the floor crying and kicking, and my aunt usually gave him what he wanted. And you thought that I would relent after such a display of bad behavior? No, it's just that. I do not want you to go. Harry, I am not going to judge your behavior based on how your cousin got his way. That doesn't speak too well about your relative's parenting methods. A child must know how to express his frustration without this kind of display. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. Slamming books, stamping feet, slamming doors. Next time you do something like that you will find yourself with a smarting bottom. Yes. Father. Now tell me, why are you so upset? I have gone out of the castle several times this year. You know I will come back, don't you? Are you? Nothing would stop me from coming back to you. But what if I need you? Minerva would watch you and also Madame Pomfrey and the headmaster. What if I need to ask you something? If you need to ask me something, you may ask your head of house to contact me. May I? Why can't I contact you directly? Because it is a complicated charm that you will learn after your 3rd year. I will use the flow to call you every night and you can tell me the results of your tests. Would you be very angry if I do not get outstanding grades? Do not worry about the tests, Harry. You have learned a lot during this year. I'm sure you will do just fine. I do not like it. You do not have to like it, son. But you have to accept it. We have to fulfill our obligations. I'm hungry. Harry knew that there was nothing more to say. I will arrange dinner with the castle elves. Meanwhile, bring a piece of paper. Are you going to make me write lines? You will remember them the next time that you want to stomp your feet to your father. No pouting. Child, you could as easily do the lines with a smarting bottom. But it will only be for one night, after all the tests are over. I won't have you sleeping here alone, Harry. You will stay in your dorm while I'm not here. I am not a baby. I am not saying that you are a baby, but I do not think a young man should sleep so far from help if needed. You will be fine in your dorm. But I won't be alone. I will ask Ron and Hermione to come, and we could have a small party. You won't have unsupervised slumber parties, son. But Dad, no whining, Harry. Sorry, are you going to lock the door? Severus knew this was a trick question. The door will open for you always. I can trust that you are mature enough not to abuse that option. Can't I? You may come and go during the day, as always. You may not sleep here or bring anyone while I am out. Am I clear? The tests end on Thursday and Harry did not compromise. I will be back on Friday. You may invite Mr. Weasley to stay over then and anyone else you want. Hermione also. Not Miss Granger. Not until you may not offer her a separate bedroom. Girls need privacy. She will be more comfortable in her own bed. Severus looked at the child eating breakfast beside him. How could he have so many faces? One day he was a dragon hunter and the next he had the notion of behaving like a cat. Just last night he had thrown a tantrum because he did not want Severus to leave him alone, and today he wanted slumber parties and girls sleeping in his same bedroom. Severus was sure to need a shrink before the boy comes of age. He would ask Minerva to supervise Harry's nights. Have you talked to Professor Dumbledore about the stone? Yes, I have. And what did he say? He said that you shouldn't worry about it. Are you going to add more traps? Curiosity killed the cat? Meow. But he died happy. You are going to change from a smart cat to a smarting one, child. You are not fun. I am your father. Fun is not listed in the job description. Harry just kept quiet but gave his father a quick hug before leaving for class. Severus met Minerva in the corridors some minutes later. The witch was wearing a grin. Everything all right, Minerva? Things do sort themselves. Do you have Gryffindor 5th years today in class? I think so. Do not mention Mr. Percy Weasley's appearance. He is waiting for his hair to turn back to his natural color. An accident in the showers? New shampoo, I think. Courtesy of his brothers? There is no proof. He will just have to live it down then. When are you leaving? Monday night before dinner. I have to be at the welcome cocktail as an invited speaker. Have fun. Would you be so kind as to watch over my child and ensure that he is in bed on time each night? Is there anything I should know? Nothing at all? I will watch him. Thank you. Time for class. Me too. Percy Weasley entered the potions classroom and sat on the back of the room. His hair was bright green. Snape started the class placing the instructions in the blackboard. His owl group was capable of brewing without much supervision. At the end of the class he called the green-haired lad to his desk. Professor Snape. Mr. Weasley, are you planning to start a new fashion? No, sir, it was an accident. I see. You were in charge of supervising your housemates' bedtime, were you not? Yes, sir. Were they difficult? Difficult? The first years. Were they difficult? No, sir, they behaved. What were your head of house instructions concerning the restriction? Not much, only that I had to be sure that they were in bed at 8 and that I were to give them a token. I see. I can assure you that they were all in bed at exactly 8 o'clock. So, There was no need to parade them from the common room calling them babies, nor was it appropriate to allow the rest of your housemates to laugh at them, was it? No need, sir, but, well, the house was not happy because of the points they lost. Miss Granger alone has gained more than 3 times the number of points they lost. Are you not aware of that? Yes, sir, but, tell me, Mr. Weasley, was there any need to mortify those children more? Do you think that your head of house was too lenient in her dealing with them? No, sir. But they got the prefects in trouble also. You were in trouble because you did not fulfill your job correctly. Have you forgotten the talk Professor McGonagall and I had with you? No, sir. You were not given the badges only for decoration. Mr. Weasley, you were given authority over your schoolmates to help them and to keep order. It is your job to protect the younger kids. Was that not clear? Yes, sir. It was. I guess I'm sorry, sir. It's not only. My brother should know better. His behavior reflects on me, and I would advise you to remember that you are not the center of the universe. Your brother's behavior only reflects on him. Yes, sir. I trust that you would compensate them somehow. Yes, sir. Good. You may go now, Mr. Weasley. One more thing, if I ever learn that you abused your position or allowed a helpless student to be called names, you won't have to worry about your hair changing color. You won't have any hair left. Am I understood? Yes, sir. And how was your day? We have a lot to study. Dad, have you seen Percy's hair? I noticed. Did you have anything to do with it? Maybe. Not exactly. Was this payback for your week of restriction? A little. Do you feel that it was wrong the way you were treated by your housemates and prefects? Not really. It was hard to go to bed so early and it was not fun to be called babies, but they helped us with homework and they even smuggled us some dessert and Percy's stories were gross, but fun. He was so angry with Ron. He should take it easy. It was not as if we were not being punished. I like how his hair looks. He should apologize for the way he treated you. Not after we turned his hair green. You must not take the law onto your hands, child. Even if you only do a foolish thing like changing the color of someone's hair. You know that you can tell me if anyone, prefect or not, bully you in any way, don't you? Yes, Dad. It was the day of the last test. All the kids ready for the term to end. As they left their respective classrooms, they behaved as foolishly as possible. Minerva couldn't believe that, as always, the ones giving the most problems trouble the 7 years. As during the following weeks they would suffer a transformation from kids to adults, they wanted to have as much fun as possible. She even had to threaten to have them back for another year in order to make them behave. And the staff was not complete. Pomona was in the infirmary with a nasty cold. Severus was out on the seminar. And Professor Dumbledore had left early with summons from the ministry. Flitwick proposed to place bars in the common rooms until after the end of term feast, and she was considering the idea. And the elves, feeling that they would miss their dear pampered charges, were serving everyone's favorite dessert. She should ask Poppy to get digestives ready. Since breakfast, McGonagall had tried to keep an open eye on Potter and company. The boy had gone to bed on time the previous nights and had talked with Severus by Flo from her office. All in all, he had behaved himself. And it may be her cat instinct, but she knew that soon he would do something foolish. He had strawberries and banana split for lunch and was laughing along with his friends. He also shared a joke with the Slytherins, as they threw amicable words from table to table. She wished she had more eyes. She had the Slytherin and Gryffindor prefects doing an inspection of the articles brought to the common rooms. She only hoped that Pomona would be all right to supervise dinner tonight. At last the children dined and went their separate ways to bed. Her first years were the first to leave the Great Hall. Potter, Longbottom, Weasley, Finnegan and Thomas trooped out. Granger and the rest of the girls followed. They were planning something. She guessed that a small party in their dorm. She would look in on them later. As in cue, once that Potter and company left the room, everyone else went out. She finished her tea and took one more cookie. She should write to her niece to confirm her summer accommodations. It was nice to end another year. She stood and cleaned the cookie crumbs from her skirt. One more hour until curfew and she would have to stop any party running in her house. She had time for a peaceful time in her quarters meanwhile. Minerva must have fallen asleep. The grandfather clock woke her up at 10 with its chimes. She stood up and took the private entrance to Gryffindor Tower. She needed to talk with the prefects and to see that all her lions were safely in bed by now. The common room was not empty, but only older kids were there. Old friends enjoying the time before being forced to grow up. She went upstairs to the boys' side of the tower and heard that all was quiet. She stood by the first-year dorm and the silence was deafening. The children should be tired, but it was too quiet. She opened the door and saw that the beds had the curtains closed. This was not right. She opened the first one and there was a bundle under the covers. She must be paranoid, but she did touch the bundle and it was soft as a pillow. The 5 beds had pillows instead of children. She went out and asked the prefects in the common room. They went to bed ages ago, Professor. No one has come out. Minerva was going to kill them. She went back to her office after sealing the entrance. She was going to catch them. She called by flow to Newcastle. But Severus was not available. She was told that the end of the seminar dinner was taking place in a Muggle hotel. She only left a note for Severus to return as soon as possible. She went out and looked for the teacher in charge of patrolling that night. Pomona, Poppy and Flitwick went to search all the corridors. Minerva saw a shadow in the 3rd floor and followed it. It was not Potter, it was Quirrell. W. What are you doing here, Minerva? The man stuttered. I am looking for all my first years, Potter included. They are not in their beds. Potter, I can't be sure, but I think that I saw someone. I heard several someones in the corridor. That is why I am here. Of course, the kind of mischief reserved for the last day of the term, to go to the forbidden corridor. I will look for them. Quirinus, would you please let Phileas and Pomona know that I am here and may need help? Of course, Minerva. She did not think that it was strange that he was not stuttering anymore. Severus Snape received acceptation from his fellow potion masters. It was nice to talk about ingredients and reactions with knowledgeable persons. The conferences were interesting and he had a lot of new ideas to test. As only the last dinner was left, he excused himself and shrinking his packed suitcase walked to the nearest flow to return to Hogwarts. Harry would be glad that he had managed to return one day earlier. He used the flow to get to Diagon Alley and from there he flowed to Hogsmeade. The night was agreeable. He walked to Hogwarts gates. It was almost 11 p.m. The castle should be asleep. Severus was surprised to encounter a frenetic Medi-Witch on his way to the dungeons. In 3 hurried lines he learned that Harry was missing from his bed along with all the first-year Gryffindors. He also learned that Minerva had started a search party but now she was missing also. He ran to the dungeons. He needed to check on his wards to the tower and to the stone. As he entered his living room he stepped over something different from his rug. He lighted his wand and saw a bunch of heads under sleeping bags. So here were the missing lions. Breathing more at ease, he used the light to find his child. Harry was sleeping near the kitchen door. The little fiend was sleeping peacefully. Calmed down by his discovery, he realized that there were more than 5 children sleeping here. He looked at each one and realized that Slytherins and Gryffindors were using his living room as dormitory. Was someone else in Harry's room? He opened the door and found that there were also sleeping bags there. The girls had come also. On the kitchen table he saw what looked like ice cream bowls, popcorn and sodas. Cleaning the quarters was going to be the first part of Harry's punishment. Second part, the first would include several well-placed smacks to his backside. Well, he only had to inform the school that the children were all right. He entered his offices and was alarmed that the stone wards were triggered. He sealed his quarters. No one could go in or out until he came back and he ran to the 3rd floor. Harry felt himself wake up in the dark room. He held his breath trying to guess what had brought him from dreamland. Near him he could hear Neville, soft snores and also Ron's. Malfoy and his dorm mates were also close. Harry could not identify them. There were 17 children all in Snape's and Harry's quarters in the dungeons. It had been very easy to do it. He, Hermione, Ron and Draco had planned it. Draco knew about the wards around Slytherin. They would be triggered if anyone leaves the room after curfew. Technically they did not left their common room. They entered Snape's quarters using his private entrance to the Slytherin common room. Harry only had to open the door. And for the Gryffindors, they met in their room half an hour before curfew. Harry had used his cloak. He had escorted Seamus and Dean to the library and then walked back for Neville and Ron. As almost every dorm was throwing a party, nobody noticed. The prefect saw them going up their room, but as Percy was distracted by the twins, he did not check inside the room. They placed their pillows under the covers just in case. The girls in Gryffindor had claimed that they need some feminine assistance from Madame Pomfrey and were allowed to go out. Once in his quarters, Harry told everyone that they could not enter Snape's bedroom or office. They had sleeping bags and distributed them between the living room and Harry's room. They asked for desserts from the kitchen elves and played charades and imitate their professors before turning off the lights and starting to tell scary stories. The children were tired after the exams and the excitement of sneaking out of their common rooms, so they started falling asleep, and at 11 no one was stirring. Harry turned in his sleeping bag. They had cushioning charms, so he did not feel the hard floor. He recalled that his father returned the next day. He would have to clean the quarters early. He had said that he was going to return on Friday. It was not going to be good if he arrived to a living room full of Slytherins and Gryffindors. Harry cuddled between his warm covers and fell asleep again. Severus ran to the third-floor corridor and opened the door carefully. He saw that the three-headed dog was occupied. One of the heads was chewing what looked like a torn harp, and the other two were trying to chew on it too. The trap under the dog was open and branches were coming out. Definitively someone had gone inside. He closed the door and retraced his steps. Phileas, Pomona, Poppy and Snape met in the infirmary. "You found Minerva's missing cubs, have you not?" "Minerva's and more. There are a lot of children sleeping in my living room. My house is all accounted for, Slytherins, Gryffindors, boys and girls. Not completely unheard of, but I trust that you will have plenty to say when they wake up." "Yes. Have you checked on the ravens?" "Yes, all in bed and asleep." "And the staff?" "Albus is with the minister and will come in the morning. Minerva and Quirrell are missing. The third-floor corridor has been disturbed. We need to go there." "Shouldn't we wait for Albus?" "We can't all go. I think we should call the Aurors. Albus would want to keep this between us. Let's keep the students inside their common rooms. The elves can feed them there and they will be safe. Poppy, you, Pomona and Filch may manage until Albus arrives. Phileas, would you come with me?" "Certainly, Severus. We can bring Hagrid with us to take care of Fluffy." "The firsties are safe in your quarters." "Yes, Harry knows how to ask for meals. They won't starve." "We'll sort them out later." "Much later," thought Severus. He needed time to wash them and rinse them properly. "Severus, remember that the devil's snare can be controlled with warmth and light. Do not harm it." Snape thought that Pomona was just like Hagrid, both loving dangerous creatures. Flitwick and Snape found Professor McGonagall in a heap near a gigantic chessboard. The figures were surrounding her protectively. They allowed Severus to kneel beside her. She regained consciousness as he touched her. "Severus, you are back. I can't find Harry. Do not worry, Minerva. He is safe in my quarters. What happened to you?" "Quirrell, he said that he would come with me to help. Once I won the game, he hid me. The White Knight helped me, but I think my leg is broken. The Black Tower went after him, but I can't tell you what happened." "Do not worry. The next room has your trap, Severus." Snape stood up and through the door saw a black figure on the floor. The Black Tower, he guessed. Under it he could distinguish a turban. He walked closer and saw that not only the turban was under the chess piece. Quirrell had not been able to move from its way. He touched the man and realized that even if he was immobile, the man was not dead. He looked at the table where he had placed the potions. One bottle was empty. The stupid man had chosen wrongly. Severus had warned him about the draught of the living death. The man would not be able to be questioned until 24 hours after he drank the antidote. Flitwick had placed a splint on Minerva's leg and walked beside his colleague. He did not get too far. Minerva has always been very good with transfiguration. "We need to take her to Poppy for medical attention. I'll levitate the chess piece, you move Quirinus." It was tricky to take the two stretchers up the trap hole. They managed with Hagrid's help. Fluffy was happy. Each head had a bone and was biting on them with relish. At the infirmary they found that Professor Dumbledore had arrived. "Minerva?" The old man looked worried as his deputy levitated in the stretcher. Quirrell came behind her. "Quirrell? What happened to you two?" "He is in no position to answer, Albus," informed Severus. "He seems to have drunk the draught of the living death." "And a chess tower fell on him," said Flitwick. "We are not sure in what order." "He was after the stone. He attacked me. He hit my head," Fortunately it was in the chess room. Chess pieces are very loyal, said the white-bearded man. Why would he? We'll have to wait to find out. And how do you feel? I've been better, Albus. I trust that Poppy will fix my leg. I will need a drink then. Poppy started fusing around her. She moved her wand up and down and used her bone-mending charm. Now Minerva, move your toes. It's going to hurt a little, but they need to be moving while the bone mends. Minerva flinched but obeyed. The pain disappeared a moment later. The witch started breathing calmer. She looked at her colleagues around her. She was not really used to all that attention. Severus, are you sure that Potter is all right? Yes, Minerva, he is in my quarters, along with his dorm mates and my Slytherin first years. I think that the girls are there also. They're in Harry's room. The little devil. How could they pull something like that? I'll make him explain in the morning. Now I am tired. I will go to sleep. What do we do about Quirrell? Poppy was examining the odd man. He seems to be in a kind of coma. Oh, I'm tired. I forgot. I have to brew an antidote for the draft of the living death. I am not sure I've got the ingredients. He won't move. Just make him comfortable. I will be able to tell you in the morning, after I sort my house and my quarters. Severus, you said that your quarters are full with Slytherins and Gryffindors? Yes, Albus, they are camping in my living room. May I see them? Why would you want to do that? Because, Severus, it has always been my dream that the children could forget they're in separate houses and just be friends and children, because if what you said it's truth, and I know it's the truth, those kids are friends. Did they thrash your quarters? Asked Pomona. Snape breathed deeply. I only had my wand lighted. The furniture had been moved toward the walls, but the place was all right. The kitchen was full of dirty dishes. They were sleeping peacefully. Please, Severus, I have to see it. I promise I will be quiet. Severus left the room with the headmaster beside him. Once in his quarters, he opened the door and conjured a light sphere. Albus Dumbledore was very silent as he looked around and saw that the children were sleeping peacefully. A big smile appeared on his face. Snape knew that he was going to regret it. The old man went out and back to the infirmary, where he sat for a while beside Minerva. The witch was asleep. The frozen man had been placed on the other side of the infirmary. Only time would tell what had been his plans. Harry woke up at all had to get in their beds before the rest of their house wake up. He sat down and lighted the lamps. Come on guys, time to wake up. We have to go. Shut up, Potter, turn off the light. Crabbe sat against the sofa. Harry, Hermione went out of his rooms. Aren't you guys ready? We just woke up. Draco shook Zabini and Goyle. We can go back to sleep on our beds. Just open the door, Potter. Thanks for inviting us. Before you go, I'll need your help putting the furniture back in its place. Once everyone was awake, they rolled the sleeping bags and were about to move the furniture when a voice spoke from behind them. Leave the sofa where it is, gentlemen. Get ready to go back to your houses now. Ladies, let the kitchen be. Professor Snape, Severus stood by the living room's wall. He was wearing his robe and slippers but was as scary as always. Dad, let me explain. You will have time for that later, Mr. Potter. Slytherins, Snape opened the door to the common room. I trust that you know the way. Go back to sleep, and do not leave your dorm until I call for you. Yes, sir. 9 voices said as they paraded out of the room. Severus closed the door after them. Gryffindors, come with me. We do not want you to be lost on your way to your common room, do we? Sir, Hermione tried to talk. No time for that, Miss Granger. You do not want me to start docking points so early in the morning, do you? No, Professor. Close your mouth and come with me. Harry was walking between Ron and Neville. Not you, Mr. Potter. Go to your room, I will be right back. Yes, sir. Harry saw his father flinch. This was a big mess. Severus guided the children through the silent corridors of the castle. He arrived at Minerva's quarters and wondered if the witch was back there. He knocked anyway and waited. His companions had been quiet all the time. The door was opened, but it was not the head of Gryffindor. Albus Dumbledore, dressed in his dark blue robes, opened the door. Severus, headmaster, I see you are bringing them to Minerva, but she stayed with Poppy in the infirmary. I am covering for her. Children, say thank you to Professor Snape for escorting you here and go back to your beds. The children could see that Snape had not liked those instructions. "Thank you, Professor," said the girls as they walked inside the office, and the boys just nodded. The children hurried out of his sight. "I am going back to my bed, Severus. Albus, we'll talk later, my boy. The children are unharmed and your quarters are also in one piece. No harm was done at all. We can wait for the sun to warm up before beginning to talk." "Albus, I refuse to talk before my morning tea, Severus, and I will drink it at breakfast." The old man was smiling, but Severus knew that he was not going to arrive at anything else. "Yes, Albus, see you later then. Severus, I see that you left Harry in your quarters." "Yes. I would like to talk with him if you do not mind." "I will bring him at 9. Albus, I presume that by then you would have finished your breakfast." "I will, Severus." Meddling old man. He was so happy that the children had bonded that he was sure to give them points. He had to admit that considering all the possibilities, finding the children in his quarters was the best outcome. And the children had been sensible enough. Nobody had tampered with his alcohol, and they had gone to sleep at a good time. He had entered his quarters at 11:30 and they did not stir. That meant that they had been asleep for a while. Harry had looked so peaceful, and they were going to tidy the quarters but he had expressly forbidden Harry to have anyone else in their quarters. The boy had never had a place to call his own or to invite his friends. But Severus had said that he could invite anyone when he was back. Where was the fun if you had a parent around when you wanted to talk about your parent? The boy had looked so contrite when he sent him to his room. Severus will place the furniture in its place and try to sleep a little. Maybe Albus was right. They could wait until the sun was up before sorting this slumber business. He opened the door. The light was on. The sofa and couch were back on their places. They were heavy. He should have told the boy that he should leave the room be. "Harry?" The boy was nowhere to be seen. Snape looked in the boy's room. The place was tidy. But his son was not there. A light was on in the kitchen. He looked there and saw that the plates were washed. Harry was sitting at the table. His head was resting over his arms and he was asleep. "Harry," he touched the boy on his back. "Harry, you are going to hurt your back if you sleep there. Here." Snape held him up. "Let's take you to your bed." "You are back. You took long to come back." Severus was not sure that Harry was referring to. "I'm here, son." "Are you very, very angry?" "A little. But you can go back to sleep. We'll talk later." "The girls slept in my room. They had privacy, I know." "Please, let me sleep in your bed. I need to sleep also, Harry. I missed you." Severus took the boy to his bed and they both lie there. The little fiend. Harry was learning that if he got emotional he could wind Snape around his finger. Maybe the hat had not been wrong and the child belonged in Slytherin. What was sure was that the child belonged to him. Harry stirred before his father but kept still. He had hoped to get his friends out and the rooms tidied before his father arrived. Ready to start the day. Harry closed his eyes and stopped breathing. "I know you are awake, child." Snape gave him a playful slap. "Just 5 more minutes, I will ask for breakfast. Take a shower." "Yes, Dad." Breakfast was a quiet business. Both ate their food slowly, looking at their plates. Harry finished and used his fork to move the egg yolk around the plate. "Have you finished?" "Yes, Dad. The headmaster asked to see you at 9. "He wants to see me. Is it because of what happened last night?" "I suppose. Was he angry?" "I think that he won't encourage that kind of sneaky behavior." "Is Professor McGonagall angry also?" "I am sure that Professor McGonagall will have something to say. She is at the infirmary for the moment." The infirmary. Had his head of house a heart attack when she realized that they were missing? Harry looked at Severus. "Is she very sick?" "She broke her leg." "I'm sorry. You should start to realize that your actions affect a lot of people, not just you and your friends. If you're finished, wash your teeth and hands. I do not want to keep the headmaster waiting." Harry had never been summoned to the headmaster's office before. He felt his legs trembling as he walked beside his father. He realized, when they arrived, that he was holding his hand. Snape's pale hands were warm in contrast with Harry's that were ice cold. Harry did not notice when his father told the password to the gargoyle. In any other occasion he would have enjoyed the stares, but not now. They heard Dumbledore's voice calling them in. "Severus, Mr. Potter, come in, come in. Take a seat." Snape chose a chair, but Harry stood in front of Severus. He felt relieved to feel his hands holding his shoulders. Dumbledore was seated by his desk, a warm teacup by his side and a plate of chocolate biscuits. Mr. Potter. It is not an everyday event that a whole dormitory is able to sneak out of their common room. It's stranger that 4 are able to do it, and if my memory does not deceive me, it was unheard of for 2 houses sleeping in one of the staff's quarters. So tell me how you did it. Professor, Harry mumbled. Severus inclined and whispered in his ear. Talk louder, child, it's all right. Yes, sir. He breathed deeply. Professor, I'm not sure how it happened. We got the idea of a sleepover party and, Do you want a biscuit, Harry? No thank you, sir. Harry thought that it was difficult enough to talk without having cookie crumbs choking him. Take your time, Mr. Potter. I am just curious. Harry explained how he had used his cloak to smuggle his companions out of their dorm and that the girls had gone out alone. We used my father's door to the Slytherin common room for Draco and the rest to come in. Do you understand that it was not correct to do it? Yes, sir. Harry hoped that he wouldn't be expelled. Did you have fun? Pardon me, sir? Did you have fun at your slumber party? Yes, sir. We played charades and we had ice cream and caramel popcorn, and we told scary stories. We slept in sleeping bags. You caused quite an uproar, child. All the teachers stayed up until very late last night. I am sorry. I know you are. It would be good if you were to write apology letters to all the teachers. Yes, headmaster. Good, we do want you to have fun, Harry, but we need to know that you are safe. And it is distressing to find empty beds where children should be asleep. The white-bearded wizard's eyes twinkled at that moment. Would you do it again? Harry did not notice that Severus almost choked. He turned and looked at his father. Snape was as impassive as ever. I would like to do it again, sir, it was fun. I know that we shouldn't sneak out of the dorms and I did. I mean if Professor Snape approves. So if your father approves, you would like to do it again, wouldn't you? Yes, sir. I need you to do something for me, Harry. Yes, sir. Since a very long time ago I've felt that the houses must be able to put their differences aside and enjoy time together. I would like that to happen all the time, but I would settle for at least one night, and I think that you had a very good idea. I would like you to plan a slumber party for the 4 houses, Harry, just first years this time. If it works, as I hope it would, we may implement it for the rest of the years, maybe twice a year. One condition would be that you would forget that you are in different houses and enjoy as children that are friends. Albus, my rooms wouldn't take 35 children, do not worry about that. Severus, we can take one of the empty classrooms and make it look like a house. Plan it for next week, Harry, the night before the feast. It will be a good idea if you ask your classmates to tell you their favorite food. Yes, sir. Sir, may I ask for help? Yes, of course, Harry. You may ask for help from your classmates. Who would you want? Hermione and Ron and Draco. That is acceptable. You may also want to include someone else from Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Yes, sir. Keep me posted, young Harry. Yes, sir. That's all. You may leave now. Harry felt that his legs were numb when his father pushed him out of the office. Dumbledore was a very strange man. Harry was dreading a lecture when he walked in. Now he had to plan a party. Let's go back to our rooms. Harry, you have letters to write and I have Slytherins to talk to. Snape left Harry writing in the kitchen table and went to the Slytherin common room. He went to the first-year dorm and talked to them. He had to keep in mind Dumbledore's words. He should not encourage the sneaking out, but he had to approve the fraternization with other houses. He always felt that his students were alone against the other 3 houses. He told them that the punishment would be a day-long detention. He would give them the details later. He returned to his rooms and assumed that Harry was finished, because the boy was drawing. He placed a box over the table and sat beside Harry. Then he said, Harry, please go to your room and bring me your cloak. My cloak, Dad? But Snape only looked at him. Yes, Dad. Harry walked back very slowly, clutching the cloak in one hand. Here is it, please can you give me another chance? I allowed you keep it after the explosives incident, Harry. But, Dad, I promise I will not use it again. You may use it, son, but you will have to ask me for it. I will keep it for you. Snape opened the wooden box and placed the cloak inside. It will stay here, meanwhile. What if it's an emergency? Your cloak stays with me. Yes, father. Now I want you to stand in that corner and think of all the rules you broke yesterday and what would you think would be an appropriate punishment. Beside loosing my cloak. That is not punishment, Harry, only a precaution. You are not loosing it, I am removing the temptation. I know it belonged to your father, but I am sure that your parents wouldn't have let you have it at so young an age. I will be 12 soon, I know. But, Snape just moved his hand to indicate to Harry to turn and face the wall. How long should I stay here? At least until you lose that attitude. Dad. Keep quiet now. 10 minutes later Severus touched his back and told him to come out of the corner. What have you thought about the rules, son? I thought that, we were out of bed after curfew and, I brought them here without you knowing and we had a party. Can you tell me why that is not appropriate? For our safety, we should always be where we are supposed to be. If we are not, we worry a lot of people. Professor McGonagall told us that. And a week of early bedtime did not cure you of that. I do not want to have another week like that. We were safe. We did not even have indigestion. Not for lack of trying. Did you hear me when I told you before I left, that you couldn't bring anyone here? Yes, Dad, but, it was fine. We did not light a fire. We only moved the furniture and the girls slept in my room and… Harry, it was a good party. I do not complain about it, but you know what I said. You said not to, and you understood it, son. I thought that you wouldn't find out. How would you feel if I hadn't found out? Do you think that you could have kept it secret? Harry, we must be able to trust each other. I know, I trust you. Then why did you have to sneak in here? Because you had already said no. I am sorry, I know this is the first time that you have a place where you can invite your friends and I am proud of you. You handled the party quite well. Are you going to let me have another party like that? We can plan something for your birthday, really? By then you will have finished washing my collection of dirty cauldrons. Dad. You know what you did wrong and why. Now tell me what should be an appropriate punishment. I don't know. Do you want me to wash cauldrons? That was not my question, son. I want you to tell me what you consider appropriate. What would make you think twice or thrice before disobeying? I can't, you tell me. You won't get out of this so easily. Why don't you stand for another 5 minutes in the corner and think about that? Yes, Dad. Severus heard a chime and looking inside his office saw a rolled parchment floating over his desk. It was Albus' preferred way of communicating with his staff. The note said that he had found the perfect room for the slumber party, but it needed some cleaning and general work, like painting. He was going to make the Gryffindors start with the cleaning and ask Severus to send his Slytherins and Harry also to get the room ready. He reminded Severus that he had to brew an antidote for Quirrell. Severus had told his students to expect a detention. Cleaning a room would be appropriate. Severus went back and saw that Harry was no longer in the corner. Was the boy in the bathroom? Harry. In here. Snape followed the faint voice to the living room. Harry was bare from the waist down to his socks. Bending over the arm of the sofa, his pants were bundled at his ankles and Severus saw that he had placed a belt on the sofa, near his face. What are you doing, son? I'm sorry, I disobeyed you. I think that you should spank me with the belt. I'm sorry I disappointed you. I'm ready. Harry Potter. Stand up and arrange your clothing, this moment. Seeing that the child stood up, but was doing it slowly, Snape knelt in front of him and helped. Then he held him from the shoulders and looked him in the eye. Never think that. I am never going to use a belt on you, do you understand? Yes, Dad, but, you spanked me with your hand the night of the dragon and, I sneaked again and you wanted me to think thrice and, so, Snape embraced the teary child. Do you remember why I spanked you then? Because it was dangerous? Unlike the night of the dragon, you were not in any danger last night. You were just reckless. Son, I'm sorry that I asked you to choose your punishment. I should have known that you would be too harsh on yourself. Snape sat on the sofa and sat Harry on his lap. He buried his face on his father's shoulder and cried. You are not going to spank me, are you? Severus keyed his sweaty brow. No, son. You will have 2 detentions, one for disobeying me and a special one for sneaking out. I do not want to see that belt ever again, nor hear you talk about being spanked with it. Do you hear me? Yes, Dad. Severus held Harry for a while. He thought that soon the boy was going to be too big or feel too old to cuddle like this. I have to go to the infirmary, do you want to come with me? You said that Professor McGonagall is there. You may take her your apology letter. She is going to be very cross with me, you should think about those things before misbehaving. I forget, Snape and Harry entered the infirmary. McGonagall was no longer there. Madame Pomfrey said that she was back at her quarters. Snape followed Poppy to her office and they both started discussing what they were going to do for Quirrell. Harry followed the conversation at first, then he heard something. Someone was asking for help. Was anyone else in the infirmary? Harry walked out of the office and followed the voice. It sounded hurt and frightened and simple, like that of a small animal. Harry started looking around. Maybe an elf was hurt. He got closer to the corner. A bed was surrounded by curtains. The voice came from there. Harry opened the curtains and saw the frozen figure of his Dada teacher. Professor Quirrell had the grimace of someone in pain. Snape had told Harry that he had had an accident with potions. Professor, do you need something? Can you hear me? Harry? Snape left the office when he heard Harry talking. Harry, what are you doing there, son? He is asking for help. Snape looked at Poppy. That could not be. Was the man recuperating from the potion on his own? Poppy and Severus went to stand beside Harry. He says that he is trapped inside. Harry saw the look of confusion on his father's face and the Mediwitch. Can't you hear him? No, Harry. What do you hear? Harry closed his eyes. He was listening. He says that he is trapped inside, that he can't move and he needs air. Harry leaned into the frozen man and went to the other side of the bed. Both adults heard Harry making a sound but did not understand what was said. He is not Quirrell, he is inside him. Harry hissed again. Do you think that a snake could be under his turban? Why a snake, Harry? It sounds like the snake I talked to in the zoo. You can talk to snakes? Madame Pomfrey looked surprised. Harry turned to his father. Is that bad? Snape knelt in front of him. He was shocked, but the boy needed him to be composed. No, son. It's not common but not unheard of. Tell me what you hear. Poppy moved her wand around Quirrell. There is no snake around here, Harry. It's still talking. It says that he is inside him. He says that Quirrell was going to help him, that he needed a place to be while. Harry hissed again. He says that he is not really a snake, that he has no body. He needed the stone for that. But Quirrell is of no use anymore and wants me to. Harry leaned into Snape. My head hurts. It's saying that he needs to go out and needs my help. The implications terrified Severus. Harry, stop it. Stop listening to him. Harry, look at me. Snape looked inside Harry's eyes and used all his strength as a legerdemain to get inside the boy's head. He found no resistance. The boy trusted him completely. He heard the hissing and saw images that he hoped Harry couldn't understand. He tried to build a wall between the voice and Harry, but it crumbled. He was not going to lose the child. He looked around and saw the connection forming in Harry's mind. It was a thread that was getting stronger, and he had to cut it. This was dark magic. Harry, listen to me. Dad. Where are you? I'm here, son. Just listen, Harry. I have no time to explain. I need you to trust me. You have to help me. We have to stop this. It's your mind, Harry. You have all the power here. Harry, I need something to cut the connection. Snape saw a pair of pliers appear. The boy was great. He took the pliers and used them to cut the line. The line was too strong. Then he felt that someone was beside him. 2 more pairs of hands were helping him. At first he thought that it was Harry. He only saw the eyes, but it was someone else, the original owner of the green emerald eyes. Lily and Potter was there too. James. They were talking, but Severus couldn't understand the words. The 3 of them used the pliers and the line broke. The hissing stopped. Severus felt himself falling. He knew he was holding Harry. He tried to fall on his back to protect the child. He was no longer inside Harry's head. His head was pounding. He started by breathing. His arms were around Harry. Poppy was beside them. She did not touch them. Severus looked at the bed and saw a pile of ashes over it, and a dark shadow floating away. Harry was between his arms. It was his last thought before the darkness surrounded him. And how do you feel, Minerva? Dumbledore and McGonagall were in the latter's office drinking tea and crumpets. Better, thank you, Albus. Poppy gave me a calming draft and I slept like a baby. My leg is also better now. What do you think about my idea? I think that you are a meddling old man. Those children do not deserve to be rewarded with a party. They will have to get the room ready first. I can assure that it will take them some hours of hard work. They won't be allowed to use magic. I was planning to stop Potter from playing Quidditch during the next game. That would have been excessive, Minerva. You do not know how scared I felt when I found the empty beds or how I felt later when I thought they had gone after the stone. I could hardly feel the floor under my feet. The children had no involvement in Quirrell's deception. I know, but I would have not been there if they had been in their beds. In that case you would have not been able to stop Quirrell. Minerva knew that once Albus Dumbledore made up his mind there was no way to make him see reason. Anyway, I must remind you that they are just kids. Kids grow up, Albus. I really like Harry. He reminds me so much of his father and Sirius. I had been accused of being too lenient before. Maybe if I had been a little stricter, a tragedy could have been prevented. Severus will not allow that child to go wild. In that moment a white figure appeared before them. Madame's Pomfrey patroness asked them to hurry to the infirmary because there was an emergency. Minerva and Albus arrived at the infirmary minutes later. In spite of their respective ages they moved fast. At first sight the infirmary looked empty. Pomona and Phileas arrived also. What is the emergency? The four wizards started looking around when some movement above their heads made them look up. Over here, Poppy. What happened? The Medi Witch was floating over their heads, making a great effort to stay upright. Help me down and I'll explain. With a movement of Flitwick's wand the floating witch was lowered and placed softly on her feet. Madame Pomfrey explained them that she had sent her patroness to the school staff when Severus and Harry had fainted. She realized that something was going on with Harry and that Severus was helping him. She saw the struggle of Snape and the child in his arms. Then Harry turned and touched the form lying on the bed. Quirrell stood immobile, but she heard a noise and a cry and his skin crackled and crumbled as an eggshell. The struggle stopped. A dark cloud left the body and flew out the window, breaking it. Severus fell to the floor, protecting Harry with his body. Madame Pomfrey had been unable to do anything. She sent her patroness. She tried to levitate the couple to make them comfortable until help arrived. The moment her charm touched them she felt it bouncing back and hitting her. It made her float to the roof. The five wizards surrounded Severus and Harry. Flitwick placed his hand near them and felt as if he was holding same pull magnets. His hand was repelled with the same force he was using. As he was doing it softly, the push was not hard. He turned to see his colleagues watching him and smiled. What is so funny, Phileas? This, my friends, are the blood wards working. The blood adoption has successfully transferred the blood wards to Severus and Harry. What should we do now? I can only speculate. Once the danger is gone, they will recede. Meanwhile we can only wait. I am not comfortable leaving them on the floor. We may place cushioning charms on the floor and around them. Nothing may touch them now. We can tend into Quirrell meanwhile, mentioned Sprout. Poppy saw him crumble. I may be wrong, Poppy, but there is someone between the shell. They looked and realized that there was Quirrell inside himself. The man had lost the painful grin and looked as if he was sleeping peacefully. Severus walked through the fog following a light. He was walking on a path between trees. He could see the moon between the trees. He had been walking for a long time. He was looking for something. He had followed the light. He was sure that it was the right thing to do. Once he was closer, he realized that the light came from a house. A medium-sized house with curtained windows, white walls and a tended garden with roses. He walked closer. The house was inviting him to knock. But now that he had arrived to the door he was not sure to be welcome. He looked through the window and saw that there were people inside. There was a child seating at the table. Writing. No, he was drawing because Severus saw him change colors from a box in front of him. Behind him was an open door and Snape could see that there were people inside the room. Then he saw a woman with long red hair coming out with a glass of milk and a plate in her hands. She placed the glass on the table and the child took a cookie from the plate. The woman, the mother, sat beside him and Severus could see the boy basking in her eyes. She was interested in his explanation. The boy was telling her what was in his drawing. Severus wished he were able to hear them. Then a man came into the room. He had dark hair and glasses. He tickled the child as he leaned to hear the explanation. He took a colored pencil and draw something in the paper. The boy looked at him. Severus did not want to interrupt the family. He should go. He tried to step back, but his legs were not obeying him. He was stuck. He saw the woman look up to the window. He had been seen. The man went towards the door and opened it. Where Severus expected rejection, he found the hand of James Potter beckoning him inside. He stepped in and the woman, Lily, stood to welcome him. There were not words between them, just the understanding that they were together in the venture of loving and protecting the black-haired child that was sitting at the table. Severus looked at them. All past trouble between them forgiven and forgotten. He wondered if this was happening inside Harry's mind or his own. He stood by the two adults. Harry looked up from his drawing and looked at the black-dressed man. Now his family was complete. It was time. He stood up and walked towards them. The kid was happy, accepting the situation as a nice dream. He looked at his parents and adoptive father and then embraced them. This was what he had seen reflected in the mirror of her eyes, so many months ago. He knew that it was as real as possible. He would forget most of what had happened that day inside the small house with his parents, but he would always remember the feeling of being surrounded by endless love. Embracing them, he could tell that his mother smelled like flowers and chocolate cookies. His father like the wind when he soared the air trying to catch the snitch. And Severus, his new dad, he smelled of potions ingredients. That smell was what brought him back to conscience. He felt the robes against his cheek and the sound of a heart beating by his ear. He opened his eyes but closed them again because the light was bright. Hushed voices were near. Harry tried to hear what they were saying. He could tell that they were at the infirmary. He must have moved because he heard behind him the relieved voice of the Medi Witch. Harry? Ma'am. Harry turned his head. His arms were embracing the potion's master still. Harry, can you move? The Medi Witch leaned to his side. I think so. Harry slid down from Snape's body and found himself seated on the floor. He felt that Snape was also moving beside him. But he was not sure as he felt that all the room was moving around him. He closed his eyes and opened them to find the schoolteachers looking at him. Dumbledore, Flitwick, Sprout and Poppy, they seemed relieved and walked closer. Severus sat as well. He did not reject the hand that held him upright. He blinked several times to clear his eyes, then looked around him and at his colleagues. Why are we on the floor? Can you stand? Severus looked at the woman as if she was crazy. Of course he could stand. He tried to do it, and as the floor was not steady he sat again. I think that it is better if I just sat here for a while. He felt the child beside him snuggle to his side. Harry, are you all right? That was the weirdest dream. Did you have it too? Was it your dream or mine? I don't know. Exasperated because of the way he felt, Severus stared at his colleagues. Is there a reason why you find it appropriate to allow us to stay on the floor? Flitwick got closer and said, you were surrounded by very powerful wards, Severus. You deflected any charm that come this way. We had to let you lie there. I see. Then the wards, it was a success. I will appreciate your help now. Yes, of course my boy. With a flick of his wand, Dumbledore conjured a chair under Severus and Harry. The boy did not know what had happened, but he wanted to stay close to his adoptive father. Aided by that support, Snape stood up. Can you tell us what happened? McGonagall voiced in name of the present. Surprisingly, Harry answered them. Something wanted to get into my head, wanted my body, because he said it had been my fault. It was. I think it was Voldemort. Harry did not pay attention to the grasps around him. He took Severus' hand and continued. He was tying himself around my mind, but he looked at his adopted father. You were there. You said that you need to cut the line and you used pliers, and I saw my parents, my mom and dad and you. And Voldemort couldn't stay in my mind anymore. He wanted to hurt me, but you make him go away. Harry buried his face into the potion's master's robes. The familiar scent calming him. He felt the calming arms also around him. It was a nightmare surely, Harry. Now that you are awake. The headmaster tried to calm him. Not a nightmare, Albus. I was there, but you know who. He is not dead. He was inside Quirrell. He tried to possess Harry. He is not alive, but neither is he dead. I think that he will be back. That is why the wards were triggered. Did you see my parents, Dad? Yes, Harry, they helped me. How do you feel? Well, I think. It hurt when Voldemort wanted to stay inside me, but now I am fine. Madame Pomfrey moved her wand to run some tests. I am hungry. What time is it? It's almost time for dinner. You seem fine, Harry. I will ask for something light, and I think you need to rest. You may stay here until tomorrow if you want, Severus. But I am not tired. It was lunchtime when we came to the infirmary. We already slept for several hours. More than several hours, Harry. You came to the infirmary yesterday. Yesterday? Is today Saturday? What about the Quidditch game? I'm sorry you couldn't play, Mr. Potter. Gryffindor lost the game. Why didn't you wake me up? That is enough, Harry. Severus intervened. The wards prevented them from touching us. They had to let them subside on their own. We tried to touch you every half an hour, Harry. We were pushed away, until 10 minutes ago, when you woke up, Flitwick explained. Then I will never have to go back to my relative's house, never? Severus had explained to him that they were not sure about the transference of the blood wards, and had said that Harry and him would have to make some tests, and if they were not in place, they would have to live with the Dursleys for a fortnight. Harry knew that if his father was with him, he had nothing to fear from his relatives, but he did not want that to happen. We will visit them, Harry. Of course they know that now I have adopted you, but they need to sign some papers for the Muggle adoption. We are going to see them, but there is no need for us to stay there. I wanted to play the last game. Now we have no chance to win the cup. I am sorry, Professor McGonagall. Do not be sorry on that account. Mr. Potter, your housemates understood. I wrote you an apology letter. I am sorry I snuck out from the dorm. I am sorry that you broke your leg. I will read your letter later, Mr. Potter. But do not count on playing if you behave like that again. I do not care much about Quidditch cups if you think that you can be so naughty. Yes, ma'am. Can we eat now? With a movement of her wand, the Medi Witch appeared several trays. We'll leave you to your dinner. We should go down to the Great Hall now. Would you stay in the infirmary, Severus? No, Headmaster. We'll go to our quarters as soon as Madame Pomfrey allows us. Good. I will have a word with you later. Yes, Headmaster. Harry woke the next morning to the smell of waffles. He took a fast shower and reached his father in the kitchen as the man was placing the whipped cream and strawberries on the table. At least you are clean. Good morning, Dad. Thank you for the waffles. They are my favorite breakfast. I know. How did you sleep? Fine. I guess I was tired after all. Did you and the headmaster talk all night? No, I did not hear when he left. What did he say? Nothing that you need to know. Dad, you talked about me, didn't you? I am not going to discuss my conference with the headmaster. We did talk about you and about Voldemort. There is nothing else for you to know. But Dad, no buts, child. Harry cut a big piece of waffle and placed it completely inside his mouth with an angry movement. It is not polite to eat like that, Harry. Severus unfolded his paper. The boy drank some milk. It is not polite to keep secrets. After all, he wanted to get inside my head, so he is not completely dead. And what would happen if he tries again? You will have to learn occlumency, shielding of your mind. That way you will be protected from those kinds of attacks. Severus saw the child flinch. I will teach you during the summer. Harry cut his waffle in tiny pieces. Snape was reading his paper but could tell that the boy was not happy about summer lessons. Then the boy said, "That is all you want me for, to teach me things. You want to teach me to write and potions and all. And now you want to teach me a clumen thingy, and you should have gotten another kind of son, one that did not need so much teaching." Harry let the fork go, stood up from the table and was going to run to his room when the stern voice of his father stopped him. "Harry James." Harry stopped, but did not turn around. "Come here." Harry stood frozen in his place. He did not know why he was so angry. "Have you trouble hearing, child? Come here." Severus saw the struggle. He should have tried a different approach. After the experience of the day before, it was logical for the child to have questions. He did not want to burden Harry with the topic of his conversation with Albus, but the child needed reassurance, and, after several seconds of hesitation, Harry turned and walked back. He stood beside his adoptive father. He felt the man's arm held him in a hug, and his voice talking slowly. "It will be all right, child. You are safe now. I am sorry." It was nice to be hugged like that and to know that even after a tantrum he was loved. Harry took the napkin that Severus gave him and cleaned his eyes. "Don't you want to finish your waffle? My mother smelled like chocolate cookies and cinnamon." Snape sighed. Yes, that was the smell he associated with Lily. he understood that Harry would have memories. Yes, she did. Do you want some chocolate syrup for your waffle? Or his pieces of waffle? They loved me, my parents, You said that they loved me but I couldn't remember, and now, did you see them? Were they really there? I am not sure, Harry, but I am sure that they love you and they helped me to take out Voldemort from your mind, the rest I can't tell. It was like a dream, but I knew it was not a dream. You love me also. That was a statement. Snape detected not doubt in the child. I thought that we have already talked about that. Yes, I'm sorry. I am glad that you choose me. I will try to learn. You will have more than enough time to enjoy your summer, child. So, you are not going to tell me what the headmaster said. I will tell you when you need to know, Harry. Right now we do not know for sure and it will confuse you. Do you understand? Harry only shrugged. Finish your milk, you may have some more strawberries and cream. Yes, Dad. The headmaster has found the appropriate room for the party that you are planning. It needs some cleaning. We have only 4 days to get it ready. Can I see it? Finish your meal first. During the end of term feast, Harry sat and looked at the staff table and at his father talking with Professor McGonagall. He thought that his father was smiling. The meal was excellent as always. The hall was decorated with flags in the different house colors. Ron and Hermione were seated beside him. Hermione was very happy with her grades and Ron was happy with his cake. Just last night Ron had almost been sick with too many sweets and now was eating the chocolate cake with big spoonfuls. The slumber party had been a success. Harry liked the room that the headmaster had found. It was the size of 3 classrooms. Each child had chosen a wall and painted it in a different color. Then the castle elves filled it with all kinds of furniture. Chairs and lounge sofas and cots. And a long table. The table was kept full of salty and sweet food. And exotic drinks. They had played hide and seek and charades. After a while the girls had gone to one side to play beauty shop and the boys had an eating contest. The adults in the castle had watched them in turns. When they were tired the furniture changed into sleeping rolls and the children fell asleep as they felt tired. Everybody had enjoyed the party. Harry looked around once again. He recalled how he had felt almost a year ago. He had been a lonely, scared child, lost in the great station looking for an impossible platform number. Dreading having to go back to Privet Drive with his tail between his legs. Then he was scared that he was not going to be magical enough. He entered the castle hoping to belong to this strange, wonderful world, scared of rejection. He remembered the feast at the beginning of the term. Even after being sorted, all the faces had been of strangers. And now he had real friends and the faces were no longer faces of strangers. Now he really belonged not only to the magical world but also to the dark-dressed man that was his father. The headmaster had given points to all the houses for friendship after the slumber party. Harry did not know the total count, but Ravenclaw won the Quidditch Cup. The house that won the House Cup would be announced at the end of the feast. But he had heard that the headmaster was going to call it a tie between the 4 houses. Well, it was for the best. He saw Draco Malfoy and the blonde boy waved at him. They still were not friends, but Draco said that he was going to ask him for a visit during the summer. He also looked forward to visiting Ron's family. And he had to plan for his birthday. He had friends and family, and as if that was not magical enough, he was a wizard. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.